The streets of the city are crammed with everyday life. People strolling around, cars driving via the endless streets, birds flying over the many buildings. In a large mall, a middle-aged woman is doing her groceries, taking walks through the many aisles. When she's searching for some vegetables, she walks back and accidentally bumps into a young girl wearing a blue dress. The woman turns around and smiles, revealing the girl to be her daughter. They continue their shopping together as a sweet mother-daughter moment. They pay for their goods, get into their car at the parking lot, whilst the little girl is helping her mother the whole time. Later, the mother drives back to their home through the streets while her daughter sits right next to her. The mother mentions how they have to be quick if they want to surprise father. The girl asks her why her daddy is gone so often, but the mother explains it's because he's working. He has a very busy life, but she'll understand when she's older. That explanation appears to suffice for the girl, and the two continue a casual, fun conversation as they continue towards their home. Not a great deal later, they are at their home, an apartment down in the center of the city. The mother and daughter are in the kitchen together while cooking what seems to be a lovely dish. They have fun and make jokes. The radio is on in the background while playing a nice upbeat piece of music. The little girl can't wait for her daddy to come home, so she looks out of the window to the street below. Many cars come by, but not her father. The mother smiles and encourages her to keep on helping with the cooking. When the girl wants to go to the kitchen again, the bell rings. A voice is heard from the other side. It's her father. The girl smiles and yells at her mother that he's here, daddy is home. Laughing, she runs to the door, opens it, only to cause a massive explosion instantly. The sound is deafening and debris comes crumbling down everywhere. It almost instantly cuts to black, along with all sounds. We fade into the apartment block that is completely in ruins. People run around in the distance, yelling, screaming, echoing. The nice neighborhood seems to have been turned into a war zone. Even though we don't see anything, we can see the little blue dress of the girl between the debris. The dust and smoke is everywhere, until we can see a figure appearing from all the chaos. It starts as a faint silhouette, but slowly becomes more clear as it nears the audience, as it nears the screen. Clearer and clearer the figure becomes, until it's revealed to be Natasha Romanoff.
She's overboard and self-assured. Oh no, I know a dirty one. Hello, 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 hello. With the lights out, it's less dangerous. Here we are now. Entertain us. I feel stupid and contagious. Here we are now. Entertain us.
In a lovely suburban neighborhood in Ohio, we see a typical family home. A little girl is sleeping in her bedroom while we can hear birds singing outside. It all seems peaceful while the girl is holding her teddy bear. Someone comes running through the door, presumably her father. He hastily wakes the girl up, calling her by the name of Natasha. She doesn't understand what's going on, but her father makes it clear that they don't have any time. The mother comes running in as well and starts to pack in several suitcases as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, the father runs to another room where another young girl is sleeping as well, this one called Yelena. Natasha stands around as she sees her mother and father running around as well, grabbing everything while saying things to each other that she doesn't even understand. Yelena, who is even younger than Natasha, almost starts crying as she's scared of how their parents are acting. Natasha holds her and tries to comfort her, even though she doesn't understand what's going on as well. Soon the mother, called Milena, takes her two daughters downstairs and into the garage where she starts up their jeep. The father, called Alexei, opens the garage doors as they all try to get out as soon as possible. As Natasha is still holding Yelena and her teddy bear in her arms while sitting in the back seat, she can hear sirens in the distance. They seem to come closer and closer. Police sirens. She wants to ask her mother what they are, but she doesn't answer. Both Milena and Alexei get in the jeep as well, and they drive away as fast as they can. The moment is very hectic and chaotic as they drive through the streets. Yelena is crying as Natasha is panicking. Alexei is driving as fast as possible, while police cars appear behind them. They are yelling and shouting, making the two girls feel terrified. Milena looks at her two daughters and says she wants to explain something, they need to know something. But then, another police car appears in front of them out of nowhere, and their jeep crashes with a loud bang. After the car crash, young Natasha still holds a screaming Yelena in her arms. The mother, Milena, is shooting at police officers while still in the car. Alexei, meanwhile, grabs the two girls in his arms while they make a run for the woods. Milena is left behind while the two girls are yelling for their mother. In a very hectic moment, the father runs as fast as he can while they can still hear the sirens in the distance. Even a helicopter is flying above, for which the three need to take cover so it doesn't spot them. Natasha keeps on asking her father what's going on, where is their mother, why are they running? Alexei promises he will tell her everything when the time comes. Finally they reach a bunker of some sorts deep in the woods. It's sealed with a large metallic door, seemingly impossible to open. But Natasha and Yelena are shocked as they see their father opening the thing with his own bare hands. Impossible. Once open, he tells the two girls to stay inside. Help will come, and one day they may see each other again, and he will tell them everything. He promises. He promises. Natasha begs him not to go. Yelena does the same thing. In a very emotional scene, Alexei kisses the two of them, pleading them not to be scared, and promising someone will come and rescue them. Someone will come. Before closing the door anyways, leaving the girls alone inside. In the darkness, Yelena and Natasha lay on the ground holding each other tight. The older sister tries to calm the other down, but without success. They seem to be there for hours, perhaps even days. One day, everything seems quiet, until the door opens again. The two girls, looking tired and dirty, look at the silhouette of a man standing in front of them, but it's not their father. The man, sounding Russian, tells them he has been looking for them, and they should come with him. Soldiers stand behind them as well. Natasha and Yelena don't know what to think, but they are so weary they can hardly do anything. The mysterious Russian man extends his hand, offering his protection. And after some thinking, Natasha slowly reaches for it. We fade into a bright light and slowly see an adult Natasha Romanoff lying in the back of a quinjet, playing with a knife in her hand. The quinjet she's inside of is older, not at all like the newest models used by S.H.I.E.L.D. She gets up and shakes some troubling memories away in her mind while the pilot, named Rick Mason, tells her they are almost there. Soon they land in a large field somewhere in Norway, right next to a safe house of some sorts. It's an old but cozy cottage in the middle of nowhere. As Rick makes sure Natasha is all set up, he makes it clear she won't hear from him or anyone else for a while. It's made clear that Natasha is here since she is a wanted fugitive for breaking the Sokovia Accords during the events of civil war, safely out of Secretary Ross's hands. Natasha thanks Rick and watches him leave in his quinjet. All alone, She has all the time in the world to ponder and think of everything that has happened to her. That evening, she sits outside on the porch while watching the beautiful night sky, thinking of Steve Rogers and everyone else. But the memories of her childhood are still there as well, forever to stay. She has been thinking about that one day as of late. That one day where her whole life basically changed forever. That one day where the family she had turned out to not even be her real family at all. She heads inside and makes dinner for herself while listening to the radio. A news anchor addresses the events from the airport battle in Civil War. It makes her feel sad that she was forced to leave so much behind, but she knows she did the right thing in supporting Steve in the end. Far away in Budapest, it's the middle of the night. An older scientist is hiding in an old apartment building. We can see how the man has a whole laboratory set up, including several tech equipment. The man is nervous, sweating and seemingly scared. He sets up a camera and starts recording himself. He introduces himself to be a scientist, the head scientist of a man named Drakov. The scientist describes the figure as the father of the infamous Black Widows and overseer of the Red Room, a place thought to be a myth by many. The scientist continues to expose the man as a criminal who has been kidnapping and recruiting young girls into his service and training them to become assassins known as the Black Widows. However, after several failed recruitments, it appeared Dreykov needed a way to make sure his new recruits would become more obedient, more loyal, not capable of thinking for themselves. Thus, he ordered his whole science division to develop a formula that has a large impact on the brain of any human that is injected by it. The brain becomes more obedient to the person that is in command. It's what most people would call a mind-controlling serum. A very powerful but dangerous substance that could become a huge threat if Drakov would get his hands on it. The scientist admits that he has made a serum, but stole all samples of it, and plans to release this videotape of his confession to the world, hoping Drakov will get brought down, even if it would mean his own death. After the whole confession, the scientist puts all the samples of the mind-controlling serum in a secured briefcase and starts to pack his things in a hurry. However, it's then that both the front door and the windows all get breached. Several small explosives go off, causing the man to get wounded and the briefcase to fall on the ground, but still locked. Several dark figures enter the room, all holding guns. They reveal themselves and appear to be several Black Widows. One of them comes very close to the scientist, and it's then that the audience will see her as an adult Yelena, being an active widow still after all these years. She orders the others to demolish the place, take the briefcase and destroy the testimony of the scientists. The older man is bleeding badly, looking at Yelena, begging her to see the madness of Drakov. And in this moment, we see how Yelena is indeed hesitant, showing some sort of dilemma inside her. But before she can do anything, one of the other widows shoots and kills the scientist, claiming they have everything they need. As everyone leaves, Yelena stays behind and quietly begs the dead man's forgiveness, hinting at some sort of bond between the two. She grabs the suitcase containing the vials with the serum and also leaves. All of them head outside to an alleyway where two jeeps are awaiting them. The jeeps are pitch black and apparently equipped with a special cloaking device so that no radar on Earth could track them. They all get inside and ride away. They ride through the city, through forests, over hills, and all the way to an old Soviet army base high up in the mountains near Belarus. It's a massive complex guarded by hundreds of soldiers, many watchtowers, and very strong walls. The jeeps arrive and all the widows walk out into the base. As they walk through many of the halls, Yelena looks through several windows, seeing other widows being trained by several generals. The whole place has an eerie sense to it. They enter the command center in the highest tower of the compound, where the man called Drakov is. Next to him stands Milena as the head of the widows. She looks at her pupils with satisfaction, even at Yelena. The general looks at his prize assassins and congratulates them on succeeding with the mission. That scientist was a traitor and would have destroyed their whole cause. Yelena gives him the suitcase, which he's able to open immediately by using a special device that unlocks the safety code. Inside, he finds the vials with the first samples of his truth serum. The widows are dismissed, and Drakov orders his other scientists to further their research. Yelena heads to her own chamber, where she has a moment by herself. She is eventually visited by Milena. They have a moment where she wants to show her pride to Yelena, but the young widow is clearly conflicted by it all. It's revealed how the older woman has spent the past years perfecting Yelena's skills in the arts of combat. She has become who she was born to be. Perfect. Even though there's a lot of praise coming from Milena, there's little love to be sensed in the room. Whoever these two are, they are far, very far, from the mother and daughter that they were so many years ago. Milena eventually goes away and leaves Yelena alone. The young woman thinks of the scientist with who she clearly shared a past. She clenches her fists and looks outside to the vast landscape, promising she will avenge him. Later, Drakov and Milena watch closely how his scientists are furthering their research on the serum. However, after some time, one of the men claims the serum that's inside the vials from the suitcase is a false one. It's a useless liquid and not at all the serum that they needed. Drakov is shocked and looks at Milena. Furiously, he asks who delivered the briefcase to them, and is even more shocked when the answer is Yelena. We cut to the whole base being on high alert. Sirens are going off, all the gates are closed, and hundreds of soldiers, including all the Black Widows, are armed. Milena runs to Yelena's chamber, opens it, only to find it empty. She yells loudly out of frustration and pure anger. We cut to Yelena running through the woods away from the base, away from her life, carrying a backpack containing the real vials with the serum. And all the while, we hear the sirens going off in the background. At her safe house, Natasha is doing a bunch of workouts while trying to pass the time. We see her running through the woods and fields, doing push-ups, crunches, all kinds of stuff. She's completely trying to strengthen herself both physically and mentally. With every push-up, every crunch, every sprint, she feels herself becoming stronger. After a long day of exercising and strengthening her body and mind, she sits on her porch again. In the distance, she can see the silhouette of a quinjet appearing out of its cloaking mode. She knows it's Rick again. As she looks at it, we see her eyes drifting back into her memories. The next thing we see is her sitting at a bar somewhere in disguise. She's met by Rick Mason, the man we know would later bring her safely to the safe house. It's revealed that Natasha contacted him because she knows he can make people disappear temporarily. Rick confirms this. All the while, a news item is being played on the TV showing footage from the airport fights in Leipzig. Rick, unlike other people in the bar who show their discontent regarding the Avengers' actions, understands Natasha and believes she did do the right thing. Even though the amounts of destruction the many battles of the Avengers have caused, they still saved the world numerous amount of times. That's something that no one can repay. After they have a further conversation, they make a deal that Rick is to hide her until things quiet down. They shake hands. Natasha promises him that she'll repay him one day, but Rick claims it's no need. She and the other Avengers have already done enough. They smile and he gets up to buy themselves 2 drinks. The moment he stands at the bar and orders the drinks, sirens start to go off outside in the distance. They start off distant, but grow louder and louder every second. Natasha looks outside as several other people in the bar also grow restless and curious. As she looks through the window, she suddenly thinks back for a moment to when she was but a little girl and when she and her so-called family were also chased by roaring sirens in the streets. It sends a shiver down her spine, but she snaps out of it. She knows who it is. Several cars appear in front of the bar and Rick orders Natasha to run through the back door and hide. She does exactly that, while Rick remains calm at the bar. The front door opens, and Thaddeus Ross comes walking through with numerous armed agents. He looks at Rick with intimidating eyes and confronts him. Rick himself acts perfectly natural and calm, even asking Ross if he'd like a drink. The secretary sees right through him. He reveals that the whole state is looking for Natasha Romanoff. She has an appointment at the Rafts that he wouldn't want her to miss. They have spotted her with security cameras. Now where is she? Rick acts dumb and assures the man that he hasn't seen her. He's just enjoying a quiet night with some drinks. A pretty intense moment follows where Ross shows how intimidating he can be. He knows what kind of a man Rick Mason is. Just because he decided to stop being a SHIELD agent doesn't mean he doesn't have the blood in him anymore. After a while, the agents have searched the whole area and report back to Ross that they haven't found anything. Eventually, the secretary is forced to give up, but warns Rick that they will find her eventually. She belongs behind bars, and so does anyone who should help her. On that note, he leaves. Rick smiles as he finishes his drink. Back in present day, Rick just lands his quinjet in the field in front of the safe house. Along the side, we see the name Daisy painted on it. Natasha finds it a bit strange, but ignores it. Rick has brought some food and supplies to Natasha as they have a casual talk inside the house. He informs her how the terrorist Zemo has been captured. That does make Natasha chuckle. When she asks after Steve Rogers, he can't answer. No one truly knows where he is. As Rick wants to leave, she proposes to make dinner for the two of them. It's the least she could do for him after keeping her out of Ross's hands. He eventually agrees, and the two have a surprisingly nice evening. There is not a single hint of romance or anything between the two, nothing like that at all. It's just two people enjoying each other's company. Rick tells stories about when he was an official SHIELD agent and where he was during the collapse of the organization. When he asks her about her past, however, she freezes. She's hesitant to talk about her memories. Avoiding the subject, she asks him if there is anyone special in his life. Family or not. Rick chuckles and nods. There is only one woman in his life to whom he will always dedicate himself. And on that note, he points at the quinjet outside through the window. That makes Natasha chuckle a bit as well. Suddenly the name Daisy makes a little bit more sense. Rick claims she can laugh, but Daisy is a strong fighter. She's old, the oldest model ever to have been used. But he fixed her up just well enough to make her last longer than all the new models combined. She's a hard bastard, a tough little lady. The two continue their conversation through the night. Natasha eventually looks at the TV that was playing the news the whole time. The news item being played is that of a wanted person. The news anchor addresses that sources have revealed that a potential terrorist is on the run. Then some security footage is showed of Yelena walking in the streets of a town near Budapest. Upon seeing her face, Natasha is shocked. She stands up and walks right to the TV, making Rick feel a little bit awkward, not having a clue what's going on. Natasha freezes and looks right at Yelena's face, while she puts the TV screen on freeze as well. After some silence, she mentions she knows that person. In her heart, she knows it's her sister. She starts to talk about her dreams of when she was a little child. That woman right there on the screen, that's her sister. Rick is very confused, not to mention that her sister is a potential terrorist, like they just said on the news a few seconds ago. Natasha understands, but she feels like she has to find her. She has been having flashbacks and dreams for a reason. It's as if her heart has told her so. When Rick asks how she's planning on reaching Budapest, she gives him a look, after which he gives her a look back. He rapidly shakes his head. No way, no way, no way. He's not flying her all the way to Budapest in Daisy. Not on his watch, forget it. Later that night, Rick is flying Natasha to Budapest. It's a peaceful flight, and Natasha promises she'll repay him. Now, instead of mentioning she has already done enough, like before, he nods and urges her to repay him plenty. After some silence, he asks her to tell him about her sister. What's the big deal? Why all the secrecy? Natasha thinks for a moment and says she'll tell him about her. One day, not now. In Budapest, night has also fallen. Yelena travels through the dark alleyways, fully cloaked and disguised. She climbs up a fire escape all the way to the rooftops of the city. We see a beautiful view of the city at night, while Yelena's shadow jumps from house to house, roof to roof. She ultimately finds a building that she wanted to find, a safe house. She manages to break in. The inside of the safe house is very old and completely deserted. Clearly there haven't been people here in years. She puts her backpack somewhere safe while she sits on an old bed, processing the drastic choice she just made. It's as if her whole life is flipping over, and she has no idea where she's going or if she will even survive the coming week. She has no idea. At a military base in the woods, Drakov sits in his office while some of his lieutenants, including Milena, tell him what their options are. They need to retrieve the vials of the mind-controlling serum. If those are lost or destroyed, their entire project is doomed. Their scientists can copy the formula but not create it from scratch. Most of them suggest to send the widows to Budapest to retrieve the vials and capture Yelena. One lieutenant believes that won't be enough. Yelena was one of their best agents, if not the best. She's far too smart and skilled. Milena, having trained the girl herself, agrees. If they want to get the vials back, if they want to get Yelena back, they will need to send someone else. They will have to send him. This hints at another far more powerful and dangerous agent. Drakov is silent and haunted. He eventually orders everyone out, except Milena. Without saying anything, he asks her to follow him. The two talk through a series of long hallways through the base, showing how massive and well protected it is, with guards standing at almost every corner. They eventually also pass a long hall where we get a good view of dozens of widows training with each other. Milena has a proud look on her face, while Drakov pays them little attention. They continue to walk until they reach an elevator at the end of the 10th hallway or so. The guards in front of it let them in, and the two descend to the lowest level. As they descend in the elevator, Drakov says that the latest events are exactly the reason why that mind-controlling serum should have been used years ago. That formula wouldn't only assure them undying loyalty, but it would also eradicate any sense of moral code or conscience. It would mean 100% obedience, just like they need. But people like Milena have always assured him that simple training and manipulation would be good enough, and he decided to believe them. And he did, for a while. But then the first daughter of Milena defected all those years ago and took everything away from him. Drakov shows a lot of anger when he says this, hinting at a tragic loss he once suffered in the past. But still, they all assured him that nothing like that would ever happen again. Until now. Now he's dead certain. There's no such thing as pure rage, obedience or loyalty. They simply have to design it themselves. And yet if everything should fail, they still have their backup plan. Milena believes she knows what he's talking about, hinting at a certain red-yellow button on the general's desk on the top floor behind glass. This is indicated to be a self-destruct button that would level the entire base. Only 2 people have the authority to activate it via a DNA scan, those people being Drakov and Milena themselves. Drakov acknowledges the button, but only as a last resort. For now, he has a different plan. Upon saying that, they arrive at the ground level. It's a massive bunker of some sort, hidden deep beneath the ground. The elevator opens and a large science laboratory is revealed, with several dozens of scientists at work. Every high advanced technological device you could think of is right here. They walk around as they check on the work they are doing. Eventually, the general asks the scientists to fetch the prototype. Milena finds it weird that the general asks for a prototype. She thought he said that they couldn't replicate the mind-controlling serum from scratch. Drakov confirms. But he isn't just working on one single serum at a time. On that note, one of the scientists shows him a vial containing another sort of serum, a blue one this time. Drakov shows it to Milena. When asking what it is, he smiles. This right here is one of the many steps in their program to perfect their agents across the globe. For decades, they have been the eyes and ears on every continent, leaving chaos wherever they go. Yet the widows are still mere humans. Mortal, vulnerable. And with people such as Steve Rogers and Tony Stark running around, humans themselves find themselves outmatched. Let's call it like that. It won't take long before they will be able to start organizing missions in America. And once that happens, they can't just send mortal women. He can't even just send mortal women that are 100% obedient. Once they have the mind control serum and applied it, they will need to send widows that are above all super. Milena is quick to catch on. Yet she doesn't understand how. The super soldier serum is one of the most well-kept secrets of all time. How can he hope to replicate that? Drakov smiles, mentioning his scientists are very skilled. But it's true, the serum isn't complete. In order for it to work, they need blood, DNA, from someone who is super herself. Or, in this case, himself. The two share a look. Milena feels a shiver going down her spine. She knows who Drakov is hinting at. Turning around, Drakov snorts. Does she still have feelings for him? After all these years? After all that has happened? Milena is silent for a moment. It's been a long time since she has even thought about Alexei. But now the old wound feels cut open again. She remains strong and claims it's nothing. It doesn't matter anything to her. Not anymore. The general smiles at that, showing an ominous look on his face. Once the serum is ready, he will send for the man they had once called the Red Guardian. And his blood will become the seed for a beautiful new flower of their own making. That will be something neither Natasha Romanoff or Yelena Belova will be able to stop. Milena is silent. She knows she was in the wrong, but the way Drakov speaks, the way he acts, the way he moves, the way he looks, it truly does terrify her. Yet she doesn't show it. She promises him that she will remain loyal, 100% to their cause. Drakov stares right into her eyes for a very long time, giving a disturbing feeling. He nods eventually, putting Milena at ease. After some silence, he orders Milena to show him her loyalty then. Show him all of her loyalty. Send in the widows. In the streets of Budapest, Natasha and Rick are walking in public. Using her memory, she tries to find the location of an old safe house she used to go to. It's revealed she knows all of this from the time when she was still a widow herself. Rick expresses his doubts and whether this safe house will actually be of any good, but Natasha is certain Yelena will have gone there. They shortly arrive at the building, but also find it locked and secured. After some thinking, Natasha decides to climb up the fire escape. Rick follows her. They arrive at the top floor, where they slowly enter through the window. As they enter the flat, they also find it to be very old and abandoned. Natasha very slowly and carefully starts to search the place, as does Rick. They go through several rooms, checking all the corners, checking the entire apartment, but they find no one. Eventually, Rick looks under a bed in one of the rooms and finds the suitcase, unknowingly to him, containing the vials. He grabs and wants to open it, until he's grabbed by the throat and pinned to the floor by Yelena, holding a gun right to his head. She orders him to state his business, but Rick won't talk. It's then that Yelena also feels a gun pressed to her head. She slowly turns around, only to see it's Natasha. The two women look each other deep in the eyes, and freeze on the spot. Their mouths drop as they lower their guns. We see several quick flashes from their time as young adolescents, training in the Red Room. We see them growing up, first as children, then teenagers, and ultimately as adults. All the times they laughed and cried and fought. All very quick flashes. It hits the two of them extremely hard. Natasha slowly caresses Yelena's face, trying to fight tears back. Yelena shows the same thing. Natasha simply whispers, "I found you." And the two collapse into each other's arms, causing for a very heartfelt moment. All the while Rick is still standing beside them, having no idea what on earth is going on. Later, the three of them sit together in the kitchen. Yelena tells both Natasha and Drake about how she ended up there. The vials in the suitcase are those containing a very powerful mind-controlling serum. One drop would make anyone 100% obedient and rageful. This is one of the next steps for the future of the Widow program. Rick Mason is stunned to hear how the Widows are still active at all, as is the Red Room. Natasha is as well. She thought it was all destroyed after that time in Moscow. This hints back at a well-known mission she had once shared with Clint Barton. Yelena denies this. The Widows are more active than ever, and their leader won't stop organizing attacks. When Natasha asks who the new leader is, Yelena claims there isn't a new leader. It's still the same one, General Drakov. This silences Natasha. We see how she's clearly shocked by this. Yelena is confused, but Rick believes he understands. He reveals how many years ago there was an assassination attempt on Drakov organized by S.H.I.E.L.D. Not only did Drakov survive, but his wife and daughter were killed in the process. Collateral damage. S.H.I.E.L.D. apparently has tried to cover it up ever since. Yelena confirms. At first, Drakov was but a mere terrorist hungry for power, but since the loss of his family, his power has been filled with vengefulness and hatred. He just wants to watch the world burn, while he himself watches it all happen from behind the scenes, in the shadows. But now his new plan has been taken away from him by Yelena, and that means he won't stop at nothing to get it back. Natasha claims they should send it to the Avengers compound, or at least to America. Rick denies this. Both Natasha and Yelena are wanted criminals in the eyes of the law. There's no way they are getting those vials into the country. Their only option is to destroy them. Make sure there's no trace left. Both Yelena and Natasha agree. They don't have the tools here, however, to destroy the vials, but Rick believes there might be at the safe house back in Norway. At the military base, Drakov stands on his balcony, looking at the mountains. A lieutenant appears behind him and says he has news. He reveals to the general that there has been a sighting of Natasha Romanoff in the country. This shocks Drakov. We see a very quick glimpse in his mind, a horrifying image of his dead wife and daughter. He didn't think she would ever return after she successfully escaped the country so long ago. It's revealed how he almost had her back then, but she slipped away from him when she joined S.H.I.E.L.D. The lieutenant, however, says S.H.I.E.L.D. is looking for her as well. She has gained a criminal status, and now she's in Budapest as well, alone. Drakov feels his fists clenching, his serum, and now two of his defected widows are all in the same place. The lieutenant proposes to send an additional widow force to retrieve all of them. Maybe General Milena can command the squadrons herself. Drakov stops him and shakes his head. If it is indeed Natasha Romanoff they are talking about, then he will not only send the widows. They will need more. They will need him as well. The lieutenant is a bit hesitant, again showing how this hinted at individual is a very dangerous force. But he nods his head anyway. Drakov looks at the mountains again with a destined look on his face. Call in the hunter. Tell him the hunt can begin. Somewhere in a dark room, we see flashes of equipment. An iron shield, a bow and arrow, sharp claws, a long sword, and finally a terrifying mask that looks like a skull. A silhouette grabs the mask and slowly puts it on. The hunter has arrived. In Budapest, night has fallen. Rick Mason walks through the empty streets while having an earpiece connected with Natasha. He's on his way back to a field where he landed and hid his quinjet. The plan is to fly over to the safe house so Natasha and Yelena can board with the suitcase without having to expose that in the open. While awaiting, Yelena brings a cup of coffee to Natasha, who is sitting in the living room. It's silent between the two as Yelena shows an old picture of the two of them from their childhood. Two little girls they just were, still believing they were living a happy family life. They have an emotional conversation where Natasha expresses her trauma of the harsh training and manipulation they both endured in the Red Room. They hint at severe exercises and extreme mental challenges they had to undertake. It's made clear that the two have had a very rough time back then. The tone changes from dark emotional to a heartwarming one when Yelena mentions she never forgot her older sister. Natasha chuckles, claiming they aren't even real sisters, they never were. Yelena smiles. That doesn't matter, according to her. Even if she doesn't have a real biological family, Natasha was always the one she considered to be hers. The two share a warm smile. Natasha has been struggling with her past memories nearly all her life. But maybe running away was never really the answer she needed. Maybe all she had to do was come back and face her past head on. Rick Mason arrives at a field outside the city where he finds his quinjet hidden away, still safe and secure. While he's preparing, he stops for a second. He goes outside and listens to the wind. It's silent. Deadly silent. He can feel it in his bones. There's something eerie to the absence of sound. As he heads back inside his quinjet, he activates a radar which picks up no signals of incoming bogies or anything at all. But, still not trusting the apparent safety of the situation, he calls Natasha through his earpiece to warn her to stand by. Natasha hears Rick warning her through her own earpiece. The two sisters head to a window to look outside, but see nothing. There are no cars, no people, not even birds, it seems. It's completely quiet. Natasha tells Yelena to ready herself. They need to be ready once Rick gets here with his quinjet. Yelena grabs a suitcase, but also a gun. Natasha does the same thing. The two sisters quickly arm themselves as they put on their well-known protective gear. Yelena wants to give her older sister an extra package of ammunition. As Natasha takes it, she notices a red dot appearing on Yelena's chest. Within the blink of an eye, she yells at her to get down. Out of nowhere, several windows and doors get breached by mild explosives. Several armed silhouettes storm through. It's the widows. Several loud flashbangs are detonated, partially stunning the two women. The widows pin the two sisters down on the ground while one grabs the briefcase containing the vials. It seems to be over very quickly, until Natasha regains her consciousness completely. She sees how one of the widows punches Yelena in the face with her gun, and upon seeing that, she loses control. Natasha jumps upright like a ninja and tackles a widow head-on. The suitcase flies into the air. Yelena regains her strength as well and floors her own attacker to the ground. The remaining couple of widows open fire with their silenced guns, and the whole safe house turns into a shooting gallery. Narrowing dodging bullets, Natasha finds her gun and starts shooting back. A whole shootout starts as Yelena also finds a rifle and opens fire while taking cover behind a couch. Natasha urges her to stay close. They will fight their way to the rooftops if need be. Whatever happens, they need to stay together. Yelena puts emphasis on protecting the briefcase as well, but Natasha is more likely to protect Yelena than those files. A small drone flies over the building, capturing all the footage. In his base, Drakov, Milena, and several other lieutenants are all watching it happen on a big screen. Drakov instructs to send an additional squadron into the building. From above, we see the whole apartment complex being stormed by more widows. Inside the living room, the shootout is still happening. Yelena fights her way to the fire escape while holding the briefcase tight. Natasha covers her while shooting at the last widow in the room. The attacker runs out of bullets but manages to tackle her to the ground. Yelena wants to help Natasha, but Natasha orders her to go through the window and reach the roof. Rick will be there any minute. She finally manages to pin the widow down, ordering to surrender. The attacker, however, being completely loyal to Drakov, refuses. And then reveals a grenade, with the pin already out. Natasha, shocked, kicks the thing out of the widow's hand, causing the grenade to hit the floor several meters further and explodes. The whole floor collapses, taking the widow with it. Natasha manages to hold on to some debris, but as Yelena wants to grab her hand, the debris also collapses, and Natasha falls several stories down. Yelena yells, but Natasha manages to land somewhat safely by sliding down a tilted floor and holding on to one of the bricks sticking out of the wall. She lowers herself safely down to the floor below her. She yells up at Yelena to run to the roof, she will find her own way. Yelena does just that. Natasha shakes the dust and rubble from herself, but finds she doesn't have a gun. She kicks open the closest door and immediately stumbles into two widows in the stairway. A close quarter fight ensues where Natasha manages to take the gun from one of them, tackles her down and kicks the other one down the stairs. Yet she can't bring herself to killing them. A voice in her head sees herself and Yelena in the places of the widows. She can't pull the trigger. It would feel like killing themselves. Yet as she looks down, she sees 5 more widows running up the stairs, shooting at her. As fast as she can, Natasha runs up to the top. A very hectic chase and shootout occurs along the long staircase. From the side, 2 widows also come charging through, attacking Natasha head on. She punches one in the face against the wall, after which she is kicked down by the other. As the widow wants to shoot her, Natasha is able to kick her legs from underneath her, causing the attacker to fall over. Natasha grabs the gun and slams it against both the attackers' faces. Another widow appears out of the door and starts to swing a knife at her, but Natasha manages to kick her in the chest, causing the widow to stumble down the stairs into the others. While they keep on shooting, Natasha keeps on running up the stairs as fast as she can. Then a widow appears through another door and tackles Natasha to the ground, grabs a knife, and manages to stab her in the lower shoulder. Natasha yells out her pain, but then slams the attacker in her throat. While feeling the burning pain, she continues to run up the stairs, groaning loudly. Finally, she reaches the top and kicks down a door leading to the rooftops. There she can already see multiple widows running towards her. Natasha immediately runs the other way. A whole chase begins over the rooftops of Budapest. The moon still shines high and the stars even blink. All the while we see dark silhouettes of the widows running over the buildings like phantoms in the night. Natasha yells through her earpiece where on earth Rick is. Rick himself is already in the air, urging her to remain sighted on the rooftops. He will be there soon. Natasha, running as fast as she can, also yells for Yelena, but she doesn't respond. Several buildings further, on the rooftops, Yelena is hiding in the shadows from several drones of Drakov. She talks to Natasha through her own earpiece, revealing her location. If she can stay hidden, she's safe. Like a ghost, the younger sister manages to reach another rooftop, far away from where the shooting is. After checking again if the coast is clear, she tries to jump from one building to another, only to suddenly see a small arrow hit the rooftop in front of her. The arrow tip is beeping. It's an explosive bolt. She gasps and quickly runs away in the other direction, but just like that, it almost instantly causes an explosion. Yelena is taken by surprise and she gets blasted away, losing the suitcase. She lands hard on the rooftop where she came from, but the blast causes her head to spin. All sound is drained out as Yelena tries to stand back up. It's then that out of the smoke of the explosion we slowly see a silhouette emerging. The figure of a tall, intimidating suit, like a riot out of a nightmare. As the woman regains her footing, she tries to comprehend what exactly she's looking at. It's then that we properly see who the silhouette is. Coming out of the smoke and flames comes the mercenary Drakov had contacted. Taskmaster. Wearing his famous suit and helmet, looking like a demon from hell, holding a bow and arrows. Yelena doesn't know what she's looking at and suffers from a wound to her head. Without asking any questions, the man draws out another arrow, this time a tranquilizing one, and rapidly shoots it at her. Yelena only narrowly manages to evade it. It's then that she starts to run away as fast as she can. She knows that whatever that thing is, it's relentless and dangerous. As she starts to run away, jumping to yet another rooftop, Taskmaster pursues her. Eventually the girl jumps from a rooftop and right through a window of the opposite building. She lands hard and takes a moment to recover, but she sees the demon doing the same move as her, and doesn't even flinch. The pursuit continues inside the building, through the hallways, through rooms, along a staircase. Natasha, meanwhile, is also still being chased by several widows. She gets tackled from the side by another one. This one floors her down and threatens her with a knife as well. Natasha again tries to make the woman snap out of her loyalty to Drakov, to a terrorist. But it doesn't work. She, just like the others, is also too far gone. That's when one of the drones appears, also planning on shooting Natasha. But it gets gunned down by Rick, who just arrives at the scene with his quinjet. He yells at her to move. Natasha kicks the widow in front of her, giving her a chance to escape. All the while, Rick opens fire at the other drones and widows in the distance. The whole rooftop changes into a war zone in this moment. Rick Mason lowers the hatch of his quinjet, but just as Natasha wants to jump on, the same widow grabs her again. The older sister again yells at her to use her senses, but then the attacker stabs Natasha in the lower leg. In the midst of the chaos, Natasha screams and kicks the woman away, causing the widow to fall off the building to her death. Natasha is in shock as she climbs onto the quinjet, having serious pain. Rick is yelling and shouting, but she can't hear anything he says. She is simply in shock by what she just did. She killed a widow, a sister. Rick eventually flies away from the rooftop since the heat is getting too intense. He only yells one thing: "Where the hell is Yelena?" Yelena is still running through the hallway of a building where she crashed in. She manages to hide inside a large storage room between several crates and boxes. She doesn't make a sound while her heart is beating and sweat is covering her face. She can hear the demon Taskmaster walking around, checking every corner, searching for her with his bow and arrow, holding it very similar like Hawkeye likes to do. We see the stranger acting precisely like him. The moment is very intense, and then Yelena can hear Natasha yell through her earpiece, shouting where she is. The noise is too loud, and Taskmaster hears it. That makes Yelena jump from her hiding spot, launching herself into the air and kicking the mercenary in the face mid-air. It gets him off guard, but in the blink of an eye he blocks her kick and throws her against the wall. It happens so fast that Yelena doesn't even grasp the moment. As she lies there, she asks the figure what he is, but there is no answer. Only silent horror as he comes closer to her. The moment he wants to tranquilize her with an arrow, she grabs a small pistol that she still had strapped to her belt. As she fires, Taskmaster instantly dodges the bullets, giving her a chance to escape. Yelena runs as fast as she can through another hallway, towards a set of stairs, to the roof. Taskmaster is right behind her, firing arrow after arrow. It's as if the younger sister is trying to outrun death himself. The moment she bursts through a door that leads to the rooftops, Rick's quinjet passes by overhead. In the quinjet, Rick spots her and yells at Natasha. She in turn opens the hatch at the end through which Yelena can jump in, but it's then that they both notice the dark figure pursuing her. Natasha is shocked by the appearance, but Rick seems to know what it is, judging from the look in his eyes. The scene is extremely intense and fast-paced. Yelena runs and runs, trying to grasp the ladder that Natasha had lowered from the hatch. Taskmaster is right behind her, shooting several arrows, narrowly missing her, as Natasha fires another gun at him, causing him not to be able to aim properly. Then, the rooftop almost ends. Rick hovers his quinjet. Both him and Natasha yell at Yelena to run for it and jump. Jump! While yelling herself, Yelena launches herself into the air and manages to grab the ladder, lifting herself up through the hatch. Taskmaster is right behind her, but it's too late. He realizes he can't make the jump, so he stops. He shoots some last arrows, but Rick moves the quinjet in a way that Yelena is out of his sight. The three fly away. All the while Taskmaster stays behind, staring in silence. Natasha keeps on staring at him. The way that man was using his bow and arrow was exactly the way like Clint Barton would do. But it can't possibly be him. But if it isn't him, then why were his movements so identical? We see a drone filming the whole scene. Back in his headquarters, Drakov, having just witnessed the scene, slams with his fists on a desk. He lets out a terrifying roar, even scaring Milena. He will not let this go by. Now his finest agent has also joined the woman who killed his wife and daughter. He will have his revenge one way or another. It's then that Milena mentions that there is good news. One of her widows has apparently found something. We cut to another random widow in the street, close to where the fighting was a moment ago. She has found a briefcase with the vials still intact. Mission success. Drakov shows a disturbing smile after hearing the good news. He laughs and expresses his joy towards everyone around him, including Milena. Once he calms down, he orders all his remaining forces to return to headquarters, including the mercenary Taskmaster. As all the lieutenants and assistants leave the room, the general looks at Milena. He finds it curious how her past family life seems to be coming back after all these years. Her two daughters together again at last. But he supposes it was only a matter of time before they would find each other again. Now the only question remains. How long before they will find the last remaining piece? The father. Milena grows silent and claims that will never happen. He's at a place where no one can get out. Drakov chuckles at that. Yes, normally no one would get out of there. But those two women aren't just normal people. After their conversation, Milena heads to her own private chamber where she sits down and processes everything that has happened. She needs to remain strong. She knows she's on the right end of things. She knows it. But her mind also keeps going back to those old times where they were all just a supposedly happy family. After a while of thinking and dreaming, she opens a cupboard in her room and finds an old photograph of her and her so-called husband, Alexei. They look happy together on the picture. They looked truly happy. We get another flashback, but this time it's one of Milena. They are together in their old home in Ohio. While making dinner, Alexei, young Natasha and young Yelena share a warm moment as they are having a lot of fun. Milena all the while is looking at the three, having a smile on her face, but then hiding it away, believing she can't feel like an actual mother. This is still a mission for them, and she can't forget that. Later, Alexei puts little Natasha and Yelena to bed. In Yelena's chamber, she asks her father to sing a song for her. She always liked that. Alexei smiles, and after some thinking, the father starts singing the song American Pie by Don McLean in a very warm tone. It's a slow and comforting version. She smiles as he keeps on singing, and she slowly, eventually falls asleep. A very heartwarming moment between the two. All the while, Milena listens to it from downstairs. As Alexei eventually comes down, she looks at him with a serious face. She mentions how he shouldn't become too fatherly towards them. He's not their real father, neither is she their mother. Alexei knows that, but he still feels responsible, he can't help it. They are just two little girls who didn't ask for any of this. The least they can do is treat them well, so the shock eventually won't hit as hard as it will once they find out the truth. An argument between the two starts, where they clearly clash with their different views. Milena being stubborn and distant towards the girls, claiming they are just agents having a job to do. Alexei, on the other hand, fully understanding their job, but also feeling responsible and actually like a father towards them. When he eventually says he will protect them as well as he can, she chuckles, claiming no one can protect them from Drakov. They both know they will be sent to the Red Room once this mission ends, and they will never, ever be the same again. That thought clearly upsets Alexei, even if he tries to hide it. When she finally says that he should stop the facade of being a husband and father once they're alone, he refuses. He can't help it, but he has developed feelings towards all of them. That makes Milena look back at him. There's a warm look in his eyes, but also a hopeless one. She shakes her head. Nothing in this world would make them be together, even if they would both want it. It can't be. Alexei gets closer and wants to hold her hands, but then Milena turns her back and walks away. Back in present day, in her chamber, Milena looks at the old picture with nothing but regrets. She holds it close to her, and with a very soft voice, a whisper, she says she's sorry. Sorry for all of it. We now jump to a completely different place. Somewhere in an unknown location, in a very dark prison cell somewhere, we see an older Alexei sitting on the ground wearing a prison outfit, having long hair and a long beard. He's all alone in an isolation cell when the door is opened and several prison guards call him out, saying lunch is ready. They mock him because he's restrained with iron chains and everything. One is even poking a stick at his face, trying to lure him out to get angry. But the man, Alexei, remains quiet and still, not moving, keeping his eyes closed. Once the soldiers have had their fun, they urge him to stand up. The man does just that, obedient. The guards unlock the chains that connect him to the walls, but keep the ones locked that chain his arms and legs together. The giant man is led to the outside. The prison is one made and owned by Drakov for all sorts of enemies and threats he has made over the years. It contains a huge amount of criminals of all categories alike, from ordinary killers to infamous supervillains. Alexei gets in line to receive his lunch with all the other inmates. We see all different kinds of infamous figures here. We see Darkstar, another former member of the Soviet super soldiers. We see Mantak, we see Morningstar, all of them heavily guarded and checked constantly. As they are standing in line, the inmate in front of Alexei turns around to face him. It's revealed to be Ursa Major. As a man wants to talk to Alexei, it appears they know each other quite well. Ursa claims she has been talking with some others. They are coming up with a plan to get out of here as they speak. But they could use an extra pair of hands, an extra pair of, well, very strong hands, if you catch my drift. Alexei snorts. He recalls a time when they tried to form a team of their own together, and that really didn't work out that well, did it? He doesn't have the fullest confidence now. Ursa can't say a lot to that, but doesn't Alexei want to get out of here as well? The Russian giant wants nothing more than that. But his place is the most well-secured place he has ever seen. He listened to a plan once everything is 100% clear and planned out, but until then he just wants to be left alone. After that, the man gets his lunch and leaves Ursa with the other prisoners. As Alexei sits down at a table alone, he tries to eat his meal all by himself while a lot of the other prisoners stare at him from the other benches and tables. The vast majority clearly doesn't like him. As a Russian continues to eat, out of nowhere another prisoner seats himself in front of him with a very aggressive look on his face. It's revealed to be a man called Sitstevich. He has also joined Ursa Major and can't believe Alexei refuses to cooperate. Does he want to stay here forever, or is he weak? Even though the man tries to be angry and intimidating, Alexei just continues to eat, ignoring him. This triggers Sitstevich, as he clearly tries to get his attention. Isn't he listening to him? Or does he have to break his fists in order for him to listen? That triggers a lot of the inmates around them as they start to gather around the two. Alexei chuckles, stating Sitstevich really doesn't want to get a taste of his own fists. Trust me. Upon hearing that, the prisoner places his arm on the table, hinting at an arm wrestling contest. Let's find out then. Alexei snorts. He doesn't know what he's doing. Eventually the Russian gets convinced, and while all of the other inmates start to cheer for them, Ursa Major stays back, with several others, quietly observing. The men start their arm wrestle, and almost immediately Alexei is on the winning hand. Sitstevich grunts and tries to remain strong, but he simply can't. He's not a literal ex-super soldier unlike his opponent. Toying with the man, Alexei looks around at all the inmates, and then slams his opponent's hands down, winning. Sitstevich is annoyed and wants another go, but Alexei shakes his head. Go away, he just wants to eat. Insulted now, the prisoner gets up and intends to walk away, but out of nowhere slams Alexei's lunch tray away from the table, spreading the meal all over the place. Alexei sighs. He asked for this. Sitstevich laughs and wants to punch the Red Guardian directly in the face, but Alexei catches the man's fists and squeezes it incredibly hard. All the other inmates start to yell and encourage the two to fight. Ursa Major continues to stay in the corner with few others, closely watching the scene unfold. Eventually a short fight breaks out that ends with Alexei slamming Sitstevich's face against the table. That's when a whole bunch of guards storm the place and subdue the two of them. They need to protect the man from Alexei. As Alexei is being carried away, he sees how Sitstevich is just lying on the floor, groaning out his pain with a bloody nose. Alexei simply starts to laugh. That's a bit too late, boys. The man gets thrown into a cell again and is chained to the wall with specially secure chains. It's then that the captain of the guards enters, a spiteful-looking man. He snorts and laughs at the fact some of the prisoners still believe they can get out of here. But this is Dreykov's prison. This is hell, and he cherishes it. On that note, the captain grabs a baton and slams it against Alexei's face. 2-3 times. Hard. Even though it doesn't hurt him much, it does shut the Russian giant up. The captain feels satisfied after the little beat up. As long as Alexei remembers who owns his pathetic life here. Alexei is left alone in his dark cell. Even though he chuckles a bit, he also can't deny. This is hell indeed. At the safe house in the fields, Natasha, Yelena and Rick have arrived with the quinjet after their fight in Budapest. Rick is treating Natasha with her several wounds, all the while Yelena is washing her face. Both of them are trying to figure out what on earth that thing was that was chasing Yelena. It seemed unstoppable, almost inhuman, and the way it looked, it was terrifying. Natasha even has thoughts about the Winter Soldier for some reason. Only this one looked scarier and bigger, much bigger. Rick knows, however, and explains that that man wasn't the Winter Soldier. No, that man is the one they call Taskmaster. Probably one of the best fighters in the whole world, with skills no other living thing possesses. Yelena is still in shock. She claims that man dodged a bullet the moment she shot him. No one can dodge a bullet that fast. Rick shakes his head. Taskmaster can. He doesn't just have reflexes that are far superior than their own, but he also has the ability to study any fighter he meets and duplicate him perfectly. He can swing a shield like Captain America, he can fight with claws like Black Panther, he can use a bow and arrow like Hawkeye. And he's only hired by people when they need an absolute certain confirmed kill or capture. Natasha finds it strange that they aren't dead then. Rick presumes that it was because he didn't want to kill them. Maybe that's why he was using tranquilizing darts instead of bullets. Yelena expresses her fear for the man. She never wants to meet him again in the field, not ever. But Natasha and Rick know better. There is only one man who would send him after them, and that's Drakov. He didn't just want the serum back, he wanted them as well. He wants revenge. Rick sighs. The general will have his revenge one way or another. He has an entire army and now one of the world's deadliest mercenaries. And presumably his mind-controlling serum as well. And there are only 3 of them. Rick even suggests that it might not be a bad idea for Natasha and Yelena to come to America for safety. Drakov won't be able to touch them there, but Natasha knows that once she sets foot on American soil, Ross will have her and Yelena. They can't run, they can't. The grim atmosphere causes for a very hopeless moment, and the 3 of them truly have no idea what to do. That night, Yelena is sleeping in her bed. She thinks back at her time while training in the Red Room. We see a younger version of her shooting several targets, fighting against other training opponents, and shooting again. During one of her many training exercises, she fights against a very tough opponent while Milena, her so-called mother, is watching from the sides. She yells at the 2 of them, giving instructions and tips on how to defeat the other. Yelena is eventually floored to the ground and forced to tap out. It's then that we see that her opponent is Natasha, also younger. The 2 help each other back up, but then Milena approaches them, showing that she's nothing but discontent. She states how Yelena refuses to learn the tips she has given her, and Natasha takes far too long for her to pin her enemy down. When Natasha tries to defend herself, claiming she was only pulling her punches because of Yelena, she's silenced. Shaking her head, Milena dismisses and orders them to improve or they will be disciplined. The 2 head out of the room and towards their sleeping quarters. They pass several other widows who all greet them, showing how the bond between the women is strong indeed. But both Natasha and Yelena clearly show a sad look on their faces. Once they are alone, Yelena sighs and doubts herself. What if she will never be good enough? What if she will never be able to leave these walls? Natasha, however, comforts her like an older sister would. Even though they aren't related, this moment shows how close the 2 were all those years ago. Natasha tells her how she's the best fighter in the Red Room, far better than the others. And she will make Milena and the others proud, she knows it. And after a sweet pep talk, Yelena again shows courage in her eyes. And we see how the following days, weeks and months, she continues to train every day as hard as she can. Shooting, stabbing, sprinting, kicking, punching. Again and again and again, like a perfect killing machine. A loud gunshot from her pistol wakes her back up in the present day. It's the middle of the night, but she knows she can't fall back asleep. She decides to get up and get some fresh air. Outside, Natasha is also sitting on the porch, having the same issue. They both see each other and chuckle, knowing exactly why they are there. Natasha asks after her dreams, and Yelena confesses she's been having flashbacks to the Red Room as well. They both sit next to each other while watching a beautiful star-filled night sky. The atmosphere is very calm and relaxing, almost as if none of the terrible things ever happened. The 2 sisters talk about their dreams and what they have been seeing. They have been seeing their training, their so-called mother Milena, who had always been mean and tough on them, Drakov, the other widows who were then their sisters but now their sworn enemies. Natasha eventually also asks if Drakov ever had any other serums or plans. She remembers his hidden laboratory from back in the day all too well. Yelena nods. Although she doesn't know everything, she knows he's been fixed on developing formulas to perfect his widow program. The mind-controlling serum was just one of them. Apparently there were also rumors that he was developing a super soldier serum from scratch again. But apparently he needed blood or DNA from an actual super soldier in order for it to work. Natasha chuckles, imagining a scenario of Steve Rogers and Drakov in a room together. It's silent for a while. Yelena then asks Natasha about her life, and after she defected to S.H.I.E.L.D. She has heard several things, but never the full story. Natasha smiles as she thinks back about everything that has happened until this point. She thinks back about how she met Tony Stark all those years ago, when they first assembled the Avengers, when she fought together with Steve Rogers during the collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D., when they fought Ultron, until finally when the Avengers broke up. And now she ended up here. She tells her younger sister about all of this. It's heartwarming and wholesome, showing how she truly did find a life after years as a widow, after what happened in Budapest. When Yelena asks her sister what exactly happened back then, Natasha again shows how she finds it difficult, as if it's something she wants to keep hidden deep inside of her. So she instead smiles and tells her to go to sleep again. They will need their strength. Yelena eventually gets back up and walks inside, but then Natasha tells her how, apart from the memories of their so-called mother, she also thinks back to their would-be father. Yelena nods. She thinks of him as well. And it's funny, since he's exactly the man they could use, since he has also grown a huge hatred for Drakov over the past 20 years. And, not to mention, he is a super soldier. That last sentence causes a silence, and the two sisters stare at each other with their mouths almost dropped to the floor. How on earth didn't they think of that sooner? We jump to the two rapidly waking up Rick, while he's also sleeping. Confused and agitated, he asks them what the hell they want. Natasha and Yelena look at each other and then at Rick. They're going to break someone out of prison. At his base, Drakov sits in his office in silence. He drinks a glass of vodka while holding an old picture of his wife and daughter in his hands. The man is emotional, yet he doesn't let out a single tear. The door opens behind him, but he demands the person to leave him. Go away! No answer follows. When he demands it again, he turns around, only to see Taskmaster standing in the dark near the door. It turns him silent, and the atmosphere in the room turns more intense in a heartbeat. Drakov eventually demands to hear a mission report. How the hell did he fail his task? Taskmaster slowly walks towards the desk and states that Drakov owes him an apology. He sent him to Budapest, claiming there were just 2 high-value targets to be brought back, but he didn't say anything about those being 2 old widows, not mentioning one of them being Natasha Romanoff, an Avenger. Drakov didn't see the need. Taskmaster's reputation is legendary in the underworld. He was sure it wouldn't be a problem. Taskmaster was certain of his success. If those bloody widows of his wouldn't have gone storming and shooting up the whole place, causing for chaos. His tactic has always been more precise and coordinated. A heated argument starts between the two. Drakov claims he is his boss, and he will do as ordered. Taskmaster refuses if the general keeps on interfering with his way of things. Eventually, Taskmaster promises he will get the job done on 2 conditions. Triple the payment and leave the widows out of the field. He doesn't need any help. It takes a moment, but eventually Drakov accepts. They shake hands, but as the mercenary leaves, Drakov takes out a knife and throws it at him at full speed. In the blink of an eye, Taskmaster turns himself around and blocks the knife with his iconic shield. The man's reflex happens in a millisecond. The two stare at each other. The man asks Drakov what the hell that meant to be. Drakov chuckles. He just needed to see the legend with his own eyes. In his secret dark hideout, we see Taskmaster's silhouette looking at his computer. His mask is off, but his actual face is completely hidden in the shadows. On his screen, he's looking at a security camera footage of Black Widow, the Battle of New York, at the airport in Leipzig and Sokovia, all footage of her fighting against foes. The mercenary is carefully studying her fighting moves, her speed, her reflexes, her agility, everything. He's taking it all in, so that in time he can use it against her. The next day at the safe house, Rick sits at his laptop and calls the two women over. He has found a satellite image of the prison where Alexei Shostakov is imprisoned. Natasha asks why he is imprisoned in the first place, to which Yelena mentions that Dreykov sold him out and betrayed him, therefore sent him to a high-security prison. Rick finds that strange. Why didn't he just kill Alexei? What use is there for imprisoning him? Yelena explains that the prison in question is a place where numerous criminals and threats to Drakov are held. Every time Drakov orders the Black Widows to attack a certain place, they blame the actions on one of the prisoners. Since we are talking about supervillains, the world will easily believe that it was one of the supervillains attacking and not the Widows. Rick understands, but Alexei isn't a villain. If anything, he's a Russian patriot. Natasha finishes the sentence. Yes, he's a Russian patriot, but he's also a super soldier. Presumably, Drakov didn't want him dead because he knew he would need his blood once his super soldier serum would be complete. If they're breaking out, Drakov won't have his serum. Rick almost laughs because of how insane their plan is. That's all good to hear, but the prison still is in the middle of the Caucasus Mountains and guarded with more soldiers than you can count, trained by Drakov himself probably, not to mention Taskmaster is still out there looking for them. It's suicide. Yelena shakes her head. She has been to that prison with Drakov and some of the widows. She knows the place. She reckons she could get Natasha and herself inside. Yelena also points out that, in case it should be necessary, she also has a plan B. She grabs her backpack and out of it she takes a very special looking suitcase. Opening it, it's revealed to be the case for making the so-called photostatic vials. In other words, the face masks. Both Rick and Natasha know what they are, since she had already used it in the past. Yelena claims they could use it if they could take down two guards, take their identity, and use another mask for Alexei once they get him out. They might be able to just leave the prison without ever having to shoot up the whole place. Rick nods in agreement, but that still doesn't explain how they plan to get him out. They will have to reach the control room, use their system, track his cell, and still be able to reach it. If they get to him, how do they plan on getting out? Yelena claims they will use the hallways leading to one of the hangars. Those places always have trucks or jeeps. They can hijack one, get out while still wearing the masks. It's risky, and they all know that, but still it needs to happen. All three of them eventually agree to the plan. Rick is glad to hear that the plan is set in motion. Natasha, however, tells him to stay behind during the mission. They need someone to extract them, and chances are that they will be under heavy fire if things go south. Rick is first hesitant since he wants to help, but he understands. He mentions he'll drop them off with Daisy somewhere in the wilds, and then they will have to go on foot. Yelena is confused. Who's Daisy? Natasha claims it's the name of his quinjet. Yelena finds it weird to give a name to an old piece of junk. Rick tells her that that old piece of junk saved her life back in Budapest. And Daisy will probably need a second apology as well once she's done rescuing them again from that prison. If they get out of there. The three look at each other. They know it's a suicide mission. But they also know that if they want to bring down Drakov, they need their old father back. They give each other a nod. Let's do this. In the prison, Alexei is still in his cell, alone and quiet. The guards walk through the long hallways, again making fun of the prisoners they pass and see. All is well and quiet. Ursa Major is sitting in his own cell, thinking. Even Sitstevich, still wounded, just lies on his bed. All the supervillain prisoners are secured. The captain of the guard stands outside on a helipad as a second helicopter lands in front of him. Several soldiers get out, including Taskmaster himself. His appearance spooks the captain a bit, but he remains calm. As they walk inside the prison, the captain asks his business, to which Taskmaster says he's here on behalf of General Drakov. He's missing two defecting widows, two who were raised as sisters. Since their old would-be father is a prisoner here, chances are that they might come looking for him. The captain understands and suggests they help each other. To that, the mercenary states he doesn't need help. He'll wander around the facility, but it's best for everyone to stay out of his way. The captain is clearly taken aback by that, but forced to comply. Far away in the snowy mountains, we see several foot soldiers on patrol, scanning the area. It's again shown how secured the whole area is. Once a small patrol passes several trees, we see Natasha and Yelena jump out of them. They land in the snow like two acrobats wearing bright white uniforms. As Yelena checks their surroundings, Natasha tells Rick via an earpiece, saying that they are nearing the prison. Rick, meanwhile, is still in his quinjet, flying to a safe distance. He'll stand by, ready for extraction when they call him. Once he's alone, he chuckles, claiming he didn't expect them to ever fall into a mess like this. And with them, he means himself and Daisy, of course. Natasha and Yelena, like two ghosts, continue to sneak towards the prison. They arrive on a ridge where they see the entire prison facility from a distance. It's massive and intimidating. Guards are everywhere, and even several tanks are stationed at the entry points. A helicopter passes over them. Natasha and Yelena take cover and aren't spotted. Yelena is shocked. The facility has never been on such a high alert, it makes no sense. Natasha makes the obvious connection. They probably know they are coming. It's clear now they have no chance of getting into that prison on their own. They will need the face masks. We cut to a guard walking through the snowy landscape, out of sight of the prison. As he nears a bush, both Natasha and Yelena jump at him. They disarm and floor the man as Yelena grabs the briefcase and readies it to start recording. They need both a DNA and a voice sample of the person. Natasha holds him down and presses a gun to his head, ordering him to read a text from a piece of paper or his life ends right here. The guard does as told, reading a short text from a paper that Natasha holds out. All the while Yelena is recording his voice. The voice sample is good, but Natasha shoots the guard anyway. They can't afford to leave him alive. They take some blood from him and also use it with the briefcase. It appears to be working. As they test it, she grabs the walkie-talkie and, using the dead guard's voice, calls another guard from a distance to check up on him. An unsuspecting guard several hundreds of meters away does exactly that. As he later arrives at the scene, he is also taken down by the two sisters. We now cut to Natasha and Yelena, both acting like the two guards, wearing their faces and having their voices. As they walk towards an entry point, they see how the two tanks are stationed there, along with multiple guards and snipers. Yelena and Natasha manage to keep their cool. They have done missions like this plenty of times, they will be fine. As they arrive, they act as normally as possible. A guard says something in Russian to them and Natasha answers back perfectly casual. They enter the main building and walk through some of the hallways. Then a sergeant stops them and asks them where they are going. Yelena claims they first want to replace their weapons at the armory because they forgot to load their ammo. That argument checks out since they can see a sign saying armory at the end of the hallway. The sergeant eventually believes them and sends them on their way. As they keep walking, Yelena keeps on pointing out the way for them. Only a couple of hallways and they will be at the control room. In the wild, the ghostly silhouette of Taskmaster is walking around. He climbs upwards ridges and hills and trees, all for getting the best view of the area. It's then that he notices something in the snow. The sight of two dead bodies, hidden away very well, but he spots them either way. He immediately contacts the captain of the guards. They are here. Natasha and Yelena are almost at the control room when the alarm starts going off. Yelena almost jumps. The two sisters? No. They have found the bodies. As multiple people start running around, they take advantage of the situation. Several guards come running out of the control room, after which the two sisters sneak in. A couple of armed men are still there, but Natasha orders them to move out. The captain has required their presence. The several guards also run out, leaving the two alone. While Natasha keeps watch, Yelena starts checking all the security cameras, hoping to find Alexei. Taskmaster arrives at the prison facility again. The captain is furious. How did they get in? They saw nothing, heard nothing. He orders a large amount of his forces to head to the prison and secure Alexei Shostakov. He can't leave this place. Natasha and Yelena are still inside the control room when they finally find Alexei. They spot him through a security camera inside his cell. The two are taken a bit off guard when they see the man who had once been their father. As they stare at the screen for a moment, two guards enter. They all freeze on the spot. The guards order them to state their business. What are they doing? Natasha tries to come up with an excuse, but then the guard orders them to speak the call sign. Their call sign. The two sisters are lost for words, but then Yelena speaks a Russian word, hoping it would be the call sign. The guards are stunned. They reveal how they had to change their old call sign in case someone would infiltrate their ranks. And they just used that old call sign. Natasha and Yelena look at each other. They are caught. Before the guards can fire their weapons, Natasha kicks the gun out of one's hands and shuts the door. A whole fight breaks out between the four. Natasha wants to pin her attacker down to the ground, but abruptly gets kicked in the face herself. She staggers back while the man wants to shoot her. Yelena quickly kicks him to the side, causing him to fail in pulling the trigger. As Yelena also gets tackled to the side, Natasha regains her footing and locks the downed guard between her arms, breaking his neck. While Yelena is struggling with the other guard on the ground, Natasha grabs the guard's gun and shoots him in the head, just as another guard walks in and sees the massacre. Yelena grabs the knife from the dead guard and swings it at the intruder as fast as possible. But as the guard is hit, his finger pulls the trigger of his automatic rifle, allowing it to go off. The sound echoes through the hallways, alerting everyone. In his cell, Alexei opens his eyes as he also hears it in the distance. Dozens of guards are standing outside his cell in a long hallway that contains almost all of the prison cells in total. All of them form a blockade so no one can reach the prisoner. The captain is inside the hallway as well as he hears the gunfire. It's coming from the control room! He sends all his men towards that place. We see dozens of armed soldiers running at full speed all the while the sirens are still going off. Natasha is quick to grab the assault rifle of the dead guard, but then the first couple of guards arrive at the end of the hall. They open fire as she quickly takes cover behind the door inside the room. She opens fire as well while yelling at Yelena to find Alexei's exact location. Yelena looks at a map from the entire facility trying to find the quickest way possible. The route she originally had in her mind would mean suicide at this point. All the while, more and more guards arrive in the hallway, opening fire at the control room. Natasha shoots as much as possible, hitting several of them, but it's a lost fight. She yells at Yelena to hurry up, she can't hold them off. More and more bullets are shot at the door, almost completely destroying it. It's soon clear that they are completely trapped. Yelena even grabs a gun herself and starts shooting back, but then the guns are seized, and it all turns quiet. For a moment the sisters are confused. Why did the guards stop shooting? But then they hear the sound of the captain through the speakers in the control room and the hallway. He talks to them, saying how he's standing with dozens of killers outside the cell of Shostakov. They are here on a suicide mission. They thought they could outsmart them, outsmart General Drakov himself, but no one can achieve the impossible. That's a fact. They have two choices now: surrender and die an honorable way by the hands of Drakov himself, or watch thousands of bullets pierce the man they came to free. They have 10 seconds. Natasha and Yelena look at each other. Their plan has completely failed. 9. The dozens of guards keep on aiming at the control room. 8. Yelena then looks at the control panel inside the room. She still sees Alexei in a cell block on display, chained up, powerless to do anything. 7. But then Yelena sees how there are dozens, almost hundreds, of other cell blocks as well, all containing prisoners. 6. Yelena gets up and realizes how many prisoners there are in total. Not just in the isolation cells, but in the entire facility. There are hundreds of them. 5. Natasha sees the look on Yelena's face. She knows what she wants to do. 4. Yelena sees a big red button behind glass. And the two sisters share a look. 3. Natasha gives a nod to her little sister. unleash hell on this place. 2! Yelena smiles and utters a Russian curse word. 1! She breaks the glass and pushes the red button with all the strength in her hands. The siren through the facility changes into a slower and more ominous tone. All the guards start to look at each other with horror on their faces. The captain, still standing in the hallway with the dozens of armed soldiers, also hears the change in siren. He sees red lights going off everywhere. They all look at each other, and the captain suddenly has sweat covering his whole face. His heart is beating. Shit. Just like that, all the cell doors open and all the prisoners come rampaging out. They attack the guards head on, taking their guns, opening fire. The door of Ursa Major opens and the man smiles, not knowing what's going on, but he will take full advantage of this. Several guards threaten him to stay back, but the chaos is already unfolding. Ursa Major cracks his neck, and we see how his body slowly gets covered with brown fur, famously transforming himself into a huge colossal bear. In the hallway, all supervillains engage in a fight with a large force of prison guards. We get quick glimpses of several famous supervillains, all from the Order of Ursa. Darkstar bursts out of her cell and is able to control her so-called Dark Force energy again, creating projects that look like bullets, shooting them at other guards. Mantak is carefully running around since he doesn't have super strength, but he uses his hyper-intelligence to foresee his way out of the prison. All the while, bodies are flying everywhere. It's a complete carnage. The cell door of Alexei also opens while the rampaging happens outside. Just one guard finds the courage to enter the cell and hold the man at gunpoint. Alexei is still chained up, but the guard gets too close, giving Shostakov the chance to headbutt him. The man falls down with his rifle, and now we finally see a smile on Alexei's face. As the screaming and yelling happens outside, he stretches his arms, lets out a loud grunt, and uses all his strength to break the chains into pieces. He rips them from the wall and finally stands up. He cracks his neck and lets out a big breath. It feels good to be free. Natasha and Yelena watch the carnage in the hallways happen on the security cameras. They can't help but smile. The guards in their own hallway are forced to fall back. Some even just run away. They give up. They want to flee. The atmosphere has completely changed from hopeless to overpowering. As Yelena spots an old CD player in the room, she decides to have some fun and connect it to the speakers all over the facility. She spots a random CD from Boney M and smiles. She puts it in the player and presses play. Now, for a very fun vibe, we hear the song Rasputin playing throughout all the speakers in the prison. On the music, Alexei comes out of the prison cell while all the chaos and fighting is happening around him. Prisoners getting gunned down by guards, some guards and prisoners having fight each other with their fists and knives. It's a total madness. Alexei towers above all of them. Several guards spot him and point their gun at him. Get down to the ground! Alexei now hears the music, and he simply smiles and cracks his knuckles. He runs towards them and kicks the first guard in the chest, sending the man flying through the air. He grabs a gun, smacks it in another man's face. As the others try to shoot him, they are also attacked by the other prisoners. Alexei clearly enjoys every second of this. He grabs a third guard and uses him as a baseball bat, hitting the other guards to the floor as well. Then two soldiers appear behind them, but just as they want to shoot Shostakov in the head, a huge monster bear appears and rips them apart. It's Ursa Major transformed into his other form. As Ursa in his bear form storms to the other side of the hall, ramming several to the side, Alexei looks in the other direction. At the end of the hallway, the captain is yelling and ordering the several couple of guards to kill all of them, kill them, kill them! Alexei hears him and smiles sadistically at him. He throws the guard that he was still using as a baseball bat against some others, causing them all to fall down. And then Alexei starts to run at full speed towards the captain. Some guards who are protecting the captain open fire, but Alexei grabs a dead guard and uses him as a human shield. The captain is barging at the metal door behind him, but it won't open. Due to safety measures, every door has gone in lockdown. The last thing we see are two things: Alexei running, roaring loudly, and the captain screaming. We see the other side of the metal door and hear a huge bang coming from the other end. Not much later, the door is slammed open by Alexei. He casually walks through, leaving several corpses behind him. He looks at his knuckles and smiles, kissing them. How he's missed using them. As all of the horrible screaming keeps on happening behind him, Alexei continues to walk while humming on the song through the speakers. He kicks another door open, arriving in a long hallway. He tries to navigate his way to somewhere, yet we don't know where. It's then that another door opens in front of him. He's startled a bit and readies himself for another fight. But out of the door come Natasha and Yelena. The three see each other, startled and stunned. Yelena and Natasha are lost for words, as they see their old father standing there, old and bearded. But Alexei honestly shows the biggest smile and relief on his face. He wants to say something, but Yelena claims they will have room to talk later. Right now, they need to get out of here. Natasha contacts Rick via her earpiece and informs him that they have Alexei. Rick, still in his quinjet, confirms and will be at the extraction point. Alexei again wants to open his mouth to say something, but he again is silenced by Natasha this time. They can argue about their past later, they just need to move. Yelena knows where to go. When he gets interrupted a third time, Alexei is clearly getting annoyed in a comical sort of way. He gently holds the two sisters by the shoulder, since he's so big he can easily do that, and calmly tells him that he just wants to get his gear back first. Then they can get out of here. He starts to run in the opposite direction. Confused, the two women have no choice but to follow him. They start to run through the hallways and eventually bump into several guards. Yelena and Natasha want to open fire, but even before they can do that, Alexei runs at them and starts punching all of the men to a pulp with his bare hands. The sisters just stand there and watch, almost with their mouths completely dropped. The Russian lets out a roar as he smashes the last of the guards against the wall, barely having cost any effort. As he stands in the middle of a whole ton of unconscious and wounded bodies, he looks at the two daughters and smiles. He tells them, in a very calm voice, that he just needs to let off some steam. He'll be fine. The women chuckle and proceed to follow the man. Outside the facility, we see almost hundreds of prisoners storming out of the building, but even more soldiers and tanks, and even some helicopters open fire at them from all sides. It's a total war zone. Inside, the trio arrive at the armory. Yelena claims they will need a key or something to open the heavily reinforced door. Alexei, however, simply gives it a kick, and the whole thing breaks open. He walks in and starts to open multiple boxes and lockers. He needs a bit of time. Some more guards arrive in the hallway, to which Yelena and Natasha open fire again, but nothing too serious for them to be alarmed. As more and more soldiers arrive, however, the sisters start to urge Alexei to hurry up. What on earth is he looking for anyway? It's then that the father breaks open a locker and finds what he was looking for. With a big smile, we see how he grabs his famous red uniform and shield. It's as if he's holding home in his arms. He tears his prison out of his body in one clean stroke. As Natasha and Yelena keep on shooting at the multiple guards in the hallway, Natasha finds herself almost being out of ammunition. She wants to reload, but then a soldier has her in her sights. For a split second, Natasha feels like she's done for. But then right when the guard aims at her, he's kicked to the ground by the infamous red shield. The thing bounces back, and we see Alexei, aka the Red Guardian, catching it while wearing his famous red suit. He takes a deep breath and smiles. It feels like the glory days once again. Far away, Rick calls Natasha again, stating that they need to hurry up. It sounds like the entire area has turned into World War III or something. If the Russians spot him and Daisy, they are never getting out of here. Natasha, while running through the hallways with Yelena and Alexei, yells that they are on their way, just keep the engine running. As they arrive in a loading dock, they see a gate leading to the outside. Yelena states that they are almost there. It's then that another hatch opens from the sides, and we slowly see the black figure of Taskmaster appearing. In his right hand he holds the throat of one of the prisoners, trying to get free, but with a quick move he breaks the man's neck. As the prisoner drops dead, we see a trail of other dead prisoners behind him. We see a whole trail of other dead prisoners behind him. And there stands Taskmaster with his skull helmet, looking like the Grim Reaper himself. The three look straight back at him. Both Natasha and Yelena feel the cold chill going down their spine. It's him. Taskmaster looks at them as he slowly gets out his bow and several arrows. Alexei tells the girls to run, he'll take care of this. Before either of them can answer, Taskmaster aggressively aims his bow at them, and Alexei yells loudly, "Run!" He starts to block the shots with his shields, protecting his daughters. The assassin runs around trying to hit the two sisters, but Alexei keeps on getting in the way. The mercenary manages to fire an arrow in the man's arm, but Alexei shrugs it off, barely being hurt by it. Taskmaster quickly looks around and then shoots another arrow at some wires at the wall. As he set the arrow to an explosive bolt, the wires explode, causing the large gate leading to the outside to fall shut, trapping everyone inside. Alexei then throws his shield directly at him, but in an insanely fast reaction, Taskmaster grabs the shield, looking Red Guardian directly in the eyes. Alexei is almost shocked. That's not possible. In slow motion, we see Taskmaster holding Red Guardian's shield and throwing it back at him. As the slow motion ends, Alexei catches it again. It's now that Taskmaster puts away his bow and arrow and takes out his own shields. Upon seeing that, Alexei can't help but smile. This is going to get very interesting. The two at the same exact moment throw their shields at each other and catch them again in mid-air. As Alexei starts to brutally swing and hit the attacker with his shield, Taskmaster does the exact same thing, showing identical moves as the one Captain America usually does. Steel hitting steel with the power of fire, the fight feels like two titans pitted against each other. As their fight continues, Natasha and Yelena think how they can get out of here. After looking around, they both spot a set of snowmobiles in a large corner of the hangar. They share a look. This is crazy, but it's the only way. Taskmaster and Red Guardian keep on fighting, and thanks to his huge size and strength, Alexei is able to defend himself quite well. Taskmaster wasn't prepared on fighting with him, thus he wasn't able to study his fighting style. As they keep on throwing punches and kicks, we can see how the mercenary is analyzing his opponent's moves. He's learning. He's remembering. Finally, Alexei manages to grab the mercenary's shield and throws it away. Alexei laughs, but then Taskmaster makes a special move with his gloves, and two sets of razor-sharp claws show themselves, similar to the ones of Black Panther. Upon seeing that, Alexei's smile quickly fades away in an almost comical way. He utters a Russian curse word. As he smacks his own shield down on him, the mercenary scratches against the steel with his claws, scratching against the shield again and again. Now Taskmaster is on the offensive as he moves like a wild animal, slashing his claws as brutally as possible. Red Guardian, however, manages to block his attacks pretty easily, and then finally manages to grab the man by the throat and throws him away against several crates. Natasha yells at Alexei to move to the snowmobiles, they're getting out of here! Yelena, meanwhile, manages to open the gate by setting off a grenade in front of it. As the whole gate explodes, Taskmaster gets up from the pile of crates and realizes what they are doing. It's then that Natasha opens fire on him with her pistol. He runs behind another crate to take cover, while Alexei runs for the snowmobiles. While taking cover from multiple gunshots, Taskmaster alerts someone unidentified. He warns that the three targets are going to be escaping via snowmobiles. Cut them off! Rick, at that exact same time, sees several incoming vehicles approaching the area on his radar. He warns Natasha that the place is about to get swarmed. Get out, now! In the hangar, the three are on a snowmobile and start to drive through the opening. Yelena throws a last set of grenades at Taskmaster before seating herself behind Natasha on the same snowmobile. Once the mercenary comes from behind his hiding spot, he sees the grenades falling down. and all of them without their pin. Within a second, he runs away as fast as possible, just narrowly escaping the massive explosion destroying the whole hangar. Now, we cut to a snowy hill outside. It's just a peaceful bit of nature. Several birds are flying over it, but then we hear sounds of violence and yelling coming from behind the hill. Closer and closer, until suddenly we see how the trio launches themselves over the hill on their snowmobiles. Alexei on one, Natasha and Yelena on the other. They ride past trees and rocks and more trees as fast as they can. Right behind them come other snowmobiles with enemy soldiers on them opening fire. Yelena immediately opens fire at them while yelling at Natasha to go faster, come on! Alexei notices an enemy snowmobile appearing in front of him. He grabs his shield and throws it right at them, hitting the soldiers hard and causing them to hit a tree. Alexei retrieves his shield automatically, much like Captain America. Faster and faster they head down the massive hill while being followed. It's a very intense and hectic chase. A set of trucks appear from the tree line to the side. As Natasha sees they are vastly outnumbered, she yells at Yelena and Alexei that she's taking a shortcut. Yelena, confused, wonders what the hell she means by that. But right then, Romanoff takes a hard left and starts to drive directly through the trees, away from the open slope. Alexei immediately follows. Several trucks try to follow, but can't as the trees are too thick and narrowly close to each other. One tries, but immediately crashes. All the enemy snowmobiles, however, do follow, and while some manage to evade the trees as well, most of them also crash. As they race past trees, Yelena keeps on firing until her rifle is completely out of ammo. It's then that she gets hit in her arm. While her arm is burning with pain, she yells how far did they still need to go? Natasha yells back that they are almost there. Yelena then notices how they are nearing open space again. But as they ride closer and closer, she notices that it's not just open space, it's a cliff. She starts to yell extremely loudly, but Natasha urges her to trust her. Alexei also spots the cliff and utters a loud Russian curse. Just as they arrive, they launch, but not too high in the air, only several meters. And all the way at the end of the open field is Rick in his quinjet. Several enemy snowmobiles mistook the cliff, causing them to crash down in the snow, but the trio manages to land safely. They ride as fast as possible, while Rick opens the hatch of the quinjet. They arrive, and the three of them hurry inside. Just as they are inside the quinjet, the trucks all arrive at the open field. The three look outside as Rick ascends Daisy in the air. Out of the several trucks come a whole bunch of soldiers, including Milena. She looks straight at them, and both Natasha, Yelena, and Alexei look back with surprised faces. As one soldier attempts to fire a rocket launcher, Milena stops him. Drakov wants them alive. As Rick is still catching his breath from taking off, Yelena gives Natasha a punch to the shoulder. She never ever wants to do that again. Following that, Alexei lets out a massive grunt of joy, spreading his arms. That was the best moment of his entire life. The other three stare at him with quite annoyed faces. At the facility, almost all of the prisoners have been killed or captured. Taskmaster walks around in the courtyard as bodies are lying everywhere, but the Russian soldiers have prevailed. A large convoy of trucks arrives behind him. Milena gets out and walks straight towards him, angry because he has failed again. Drakov will most certainly not be pleased by this. Taskmaster claims it's not his fault Drakov's facilities are so easily infiltrated. That being said, this mission hasn't failed at all. Milena is confused. What does he mean by that? Taskmaster then reveals how he has shot tracking chips out of his gun and hit Alexei Shostakov with one of them. He has their precise location as they speak. Now they will know where their hideout is. Milena should be happy, but something inside her speaks up. Something inside her spreads a troubled feeling. At the safe house, the four get out of the quinjet and head inside. Alexei breathes in the fresh evening air as he watches the sunset in the distance. He stands still as Natasha asks if he's coming inside. Alexei smiles and mentions he'd like to be alone for a moment. He hasn't seen a sunset in years. He almost forgot how beautiful it was. Inside, Rick is patching up Yelena's gunshot wound while she looks at her father through the window. Rick asks if she's happy to see him again, but she's not certain. She knew they had to free him if they want to beat Drakov. But he's also the man who lied to her for years. She feels very conflicted. Much later, they all sit at a table for dinner. Rick has cooked something simple, and while Natasha and Yelena are eating slow bites, Alexei is behaving like an animal, shoving as much in his mouth as possible. Natasha and Rick sit next to each other and share a casual smile. Alexei sees this, and then slows down his eating. He gives them a look, especially Rick. The Russian's mind instantly presumes he's looking at the boyfriend of his daughter, and thus gives him the well-known father treatment. Rick, having no idea, looks back at Alexei's hard-looking eyes. The two have an awkward but also comedic moment. Natasha eventually thanks Rick for saving them back there, to which he says he's happy to help. Alexei gives him an even tougher dad look right now. What's that supposed to mean? Rick is getting anxious, not knowing what to say. After some talking, Yelena can't stay silent about Alexei any longer. Doesn't he have anything to say? Anything at all? It's silent for a while, and the man eventually guesses he needs to give a proper thank you? After hearing that, Yelena gets upset and leaves the table. Natasha notices a somber look on Alexei's face. He sighs and thinks, and also gets up and walks outside to the porch. Natasha follows him. Alexei looks at her and smiles. She was but a little girl the last time he saw her. The two of them, actually. How beautiful they have become. Natasha, although not being upset, does remain distant. She confronts him that the last time he saw them was when he left them in that bunker for Drakov to find. But he probably knew that all along. Alexei doesn't deny it. Indeed, he did know. Drakov promised him he would take care of them and train them for a purposeful future. Natasha chuckles sarcastically. A purposeful future filled with murder and death. How is that supposed to be a good thing? The two have an honest conversation. Alexei is genuinely very sorry about the path they were forced to follow, but it did make them what they are today. Natasha shakes her head. It made them killers. Alexei smiles. No, it made them strong. After a short silence, Natasha claims she remembers plenty of things he did back in the day, from when they were a supposed family in Ohio. He played with them, sang with them, he raised them. Was all of it fake? Alexei sighs and says the hardest part of that entire mission was knowing that it was never truly real. But being a father to them was something he never struggled with. To him, it felt like breathing. It felt good. After hearing that, Natasha does smile, as does Alexei. They shake hands, and that's enough. Rick arrives at the porch, wanting to give Natasha something to drink. Alexei instantly suspects him again of messing with his daughter. It doesn't even take Rick 2 seconds before he heads back inside after seeing the Russian's cold-blooded look. Natasha chuckles, claiming he's just a friend. Alexei snorts. That's what they all say. He's not falling for that one. They do manage to laugh a bit, but then their thoughts go to Yelena. Natasha tells him that making it up with Yelena will be a lot harder than making it up with her. Alexei chuckles. He fully knows. Upstairs in her room, Yelena sits alone next to her bed. Alexei knocks on the door, but she doesn't want anyone to enter. He does it anyway, causing her to grunt annoyingly. He smiles and mentions she always did like her private space. Yelena doesn't answer. She just wants him to go. If he doesn't have anything to say, he just needs to leave. Alexei sits opposite of her, even though it feels incredibly awkward. He starts to remind her of something that had once happened back in the day. Maybe she remembers. It was winter, and they were building snowmen outside. All of them together, even Milena. The only one that wasn't there back then was Yelena. No, she wanted to be stubborn and prove she could do it all by herself. She wanted to build the tallest snowman of the family. So she went outside alone and tried to build one higher than he had. And how she struggled with it. She could barely reach the halfway point. The amount of times the thing collapsed was beyond count. He remembers looking outside and watching Yelena trying to build it again and again, over and over, and it just kept falling down. Then she sat down in the snow and cried. Yelena smiles as Alexei tells her this story. It brings back a lot of memories. She indeed remembers. She remembers how then Alexei came outside and pulled her up, saying she could do anything if she would let her family have her back. And that was the moment when Alexei put her on his shoulders, and together they made the biggest snowman out of all of them. The two smile as the story is told, but Yelena's smile turns sad as she knows that her family was never even real to begin with. It was all just a lie. It also turns Alexei silent, but eventually he says how family isn't only real when you can put a label on it, or call everyone by the same name. Family are the people you value most, the people you love. And even though they don't share the same blood, all those moments, all those lessons he taught them, all those things they did together, not one of them felt forced. Alexei has only made one terrible mistake in all his life, but raising Yelena and Natasha wasn't one of them. Yelena, at the verge of tears, asks what his biggest mistake was then. Alexei sighs and says that was when he left them alone that day. Upon hearing that, Yelena can't control her emotions and starts to cry. Alexei wants to hold her, but she walks away, yelling at him to get out, leave. Alexei doesn't know how to react, but also feels like he can't leave. It's then that Alexei thinks of a certain song he used to sing for her. So, with a soft voice, he starts to sing American Pie to her again. Upon hearing that, Yelena calms down as she looks back at him. He smiles warmly while he keeps singing. Even if she is hesitant at first, the more he sings, the more she feels like she can't resist. As he stands right in front of her, she eventually gives in and lets herself rest against his chest, while still sobbing. The two hold each other in this moment, all the while the father keeps on singing for his daughter. At Dreykov's base, Milena sits alone in her cold chamber. She looks at an old photograph of her family. She should feel nothing, but all she feels is regret and sadness. Seeing Alexei, Natasha and Yelena together after all those years, it makes her feel empty. It's then that the lieutenant knocks on her door and calls her to go to Dreykov's office. At his office, Milena, Taskmaster and several others look to the general. He announces how they have pinpointed the location where their targets have been hiding all this time. Apparently, it's a safe house somewhere in Norway. Now, their forces are joined by Alexei Shostakov, the famous Red Guardian. Him being loose means a great threat to Drakov, since he himself put him in prison in the first place. Milena proposes to send a widow force to bring all of them in. It can be a quick and clean mission. Drakov smiles, but looks at Taskmaster. Since he found their location, he gets the honor of leading the mission. It will mean double the payment if he gets all of them back. Milena feels worried after hearing that. But the fact she feels that way also troubles her. As everyone is ordered to leave, Milena is called to stay by Drakov. As they are alone, he asks her a stern question. Since the three targets, excluding that American agent Rick Mason, the targets they are after were once his own agents. She is the last one of the group who hasn't defected from his side. There was once a time where he was certain that both Natasha and Yelena would also remain loyal to him, yet here they are. He must know if he can trust Milena. She nods, stating she will always be loyal to him, ignoring the feelings inside her head. Drakov looks her very deeply in the eyes, but decides to trust her. She is allowed to join Taskmaster on the mission. She will be in direct contact with himself via earpiece. She's to do everything he says exactly the way he says it. Milena nods and promises it will be a successful mission. He has her words. At the safe house, Alexei, Natasha and Yelena sit outside on the porch while having a drink. They talk about all the crazy things that they have done after they parted ways. It's like they are catching up with all the stories they haven't been able to tell each other through the years. Natasha talks about her adventures with the Avengers, Yelena about her missions as a widow, and Alexei about all the things he did as the Red Guardian. They try to jokingly impress each other by boasting about all the cool things they have managed to do. When Alexei claims he once threw a truck in the air to take out a helicopter, the two sisters just burst out laughing, even though he continues to claim it was real, it really happened. Rick then also comes outside and hands all of them a drink. As he hands one to Alexei, the big Russian holds Rick's hand very tight for a split second, again giving him a stone-cold look. The typical look that says, "You better not be messing with my daughter." It scares Rick for the 10th time and sends him back inside. Later, Yelena heads upstairs to have some sleep. Natasha and Alexei remain outside. Yelena jokingly tells Alexei that she will break his fingers if he tries to tuck her in. He laughs after hearing that. Rick is still on his laptop downstairs, trying to figure out information after Dreykov's base and doings, trying to already come up with a plan of attack once they are ready. Rick keeps on working downstairs until he also starts to get tired. As he gets up, he thinks he heard something from outside. He looks through the window out into the dark, but sees nothing. As he turns off the lights, he gets his gun out of a drawer, and he carefully goes out to the porch where he asks Natasha and Alexei if they heard or saw something. They didn't. That also turns them suspicious, however. The three check the area, but it's completely silent. Only crickets can be heard. Rick then decides to head back inside and check up on Yelena upstairs. In her chamber, the younger sister lies in bed trying to get some sleep. As the door opens, she presumes it's Alexei and reminds him how she would break his fingers if he tuck her in. As the figure keeps on walking towards her, she chuckles and wants to say it in his face. As she turns around, the figure is revealed to be Taskmaster. Before she can yell, the mercenary keeps his hand on her mouth and shoots a tranquilizing dart in her neck. As Yelena tries to get out, he holds her tight. Even though she tries her best to get free, she quickly passes out. That's when Rick enters. He sees Yelena's body in Taskmaster's arms. Freaking out, Rick takes out his gun, but Taskmaster is quicker and fires his own silenced gun at him, killing Rick. Outside in the tall grass, Milena has heard the gunshot through her earpiece. She is shocked. Drakov, meanwhile, back in his office, orders a whole bunch of widows to storm the safe house, but Milena stands still. She almost yells at the general that they needed them alive. Drakov corrects her. He only wants Natasha, Yelena and Alexei alive. That American agent is of no value to them. They may proceed with the mission. In the safe house, Alexei and Natasha hurry upstairs as they also heard Rick falling down. Upon seeing his body, Alexei yells loudly but then is hit hard in the face by Taskmaster's shield, causing the man to fall down the stairs, almost crushing Natasha. As she tries to get up, the windows and doors are all breached by the widows. Even though Natasha wants to protect herself and takes out her pistol, she sees there is no way out of this. Alexei also wants to get up, however, and runs towards a widow to start a brawl. But before he reaches her, Taskmaster shoots him in the back with tranquilizing darts. No bullets. The Russian, however, is so strong that he manages to grab one widow and throws her across the room. Drakov orders everyone to open fire at him. Take him down. Natasha yells at her father to stop, but Alexei is too filled with rage. As he wants to fight the others, all the widows and Taskmaster fire darts at him, causing the Red Guardian to slowly succumb and fall down. He tries to get up and reaches for Natasha, But then Taskmaster stands on his head and shoots a final dart in his neck. Natasha can't contain herself and starts to cry almost. That's when Milena enters. Upon seeing her, Natasha curses the woman. She was never a mother to them or anyone, she has no heart. Milena, however, is shocked and torn apart on the inside. Taskmaster tells Drakov via the earpiece that their mission has succeeded, but then the general mentions it has not completely. He talks to Milena directly now. He reminds her how she promised him to remain loyal, to not take the path of the betrayer. Milena, shivering, confirms this. Drakov smiles, and thus orders her to kill Alexei. Prove her undying loyalty. That completely tears her apart. But Drakov needed him alive, why did she have to do that? The general chuckles. Why in the hell would he need such a threat alive? If one of his own facilities doesn't stop him, only death will. And Milena will be the one to do it. Now kill him. An extremely intense moment follows. Everyone watches Milena. The widows stare at her. Taskmaster just looks in silence with his skull mask. And Natasha is still in tears, begging her not to do it. Don't do it! Milena has the pistol in her hands. All she needs to do is shoot. Her heart is beating out of her chest. Her legs are shivering. Her head is aching. She feels like she's about to explode. The clock keeps on ticking. And Drakov is getting impatient. He eventually urges her to do it. Do it now! Everything has come down to this for Milena. She points the gun at the unconscious body of Alexei. Natasha keeps on begging. Taskmaster's dead stare keeps haunting her. Kill him! Kill him! Kill him! All sound drains out. We only hear Milena's breathing. Her heart beating. And then we cut to Budapest. It's a sunny day. All seems well. Inside the well-known apartment safe house, Natasha is sitting at a window. She talks with Milena through an earpiece. She instructs her that Drakov is going to visit her family later that day at his home. Since they suspect the Americans or S.H.I.E.L.D. even might attempt an assassination, Natasha is there to keep an eye on him as bodyguard. After the briefing, Milena tells her pupil that she's proud of him, her and Yelena. She knows they have had a rough time, but they truly have become the warriors they were born to be. Even though the words are meant well, Natasha doesn't smile. She simply thanks her and then disconnects. As Natasha is alone, we see her spending some time. She has a picture of Yelena that she cherishes, yet none of Milena or Alexei. But most of all, she despises Drakov, since he's the reason her former life was a sham from the beginning, not to mention the countless of innocent lives he has taken. She has a picture of the general on a wall, but after looking at it for a while, she throws a knife at it, hitting the man in the face. She keeps doing this over and over until she is contacted again by Milena. She tells her Drakov has left the base, so Natasha should go and check up on the apartment. The moment she wants to leave, however, she hears some noise from the rooftop. She stops and listens. Something or someone is definitely walking above her. Cautious as she is, she hides behind the door, arming herself with a pistol. We see a window slowly open, and through it a bow and arrow appear, held by Clint Barton. He checks the room and then contacts S.H.I.E.L.D. He claims there's no sign of the target. She might be gone already. Natasha listens for a moment. He's here to kill her. The moment Clint ends his call with his headquarters, he stops. He senses something. Before Natasha can shoot, Clint turns around and fires an arrow. Both dodge each other's attack. As Natasha dives away, she starts shooting at her attacker. Clint runs through the apartment while evading bullet after bullet. Once clear, Natasha reaches for a gun and attempts to shoot him. Clint, however, is lightning fast and shoots an arrow at the weapon, causing it to fall out of her hands. Once this happens, she sprints towards him, attacking the man before he can draw out another arrow. The two start a close quarter fist fight. Natasha jumps on top of him and wraps her legs around his neck, but Clint manages to flip her off him and throws her on a table. He tries stabbing her with an arrow, but she blocks it. She notices her gun lying somewhere at the back. She then throws him off her as she makes a break for it, but Barton is fast enough to grab her leg and pull her back. As she kicks him away, she crawls to her gun and grabs it, but then Clint steps on it and holds an arrow right in front of her head. He wants to shoot, but then looks her in the eyes. The two share a moment. She shows fear, regret, and most of all, sadness in her eyes. Clint looks straight in her soul, it seems. He wants to fire the arrow and be done with it, but as he looks in her eyes, he feels like he can't. Eventually, after some thinking, he lowers his bow. That shocks Natasha as well. She crawls back up slowly, and the two stare at each other. It's silent for a long time. They study each other from top to bottom. Eventually, she asks him why he didn't kill her, but he simply felt like he couldn't. There was something in her eyes. He's seen a look like that before. It's being somewhere you don't want to be. Natasha can't help but agree. She asks who he is, why did he come here? Clint reveals he's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's sent here to complete the so-called Budapest operation. Kill Natasha Romanoff, dangerous assassin and widow of General Drakov. When asked what his other objective is, Clint chuckles. Well, that would be killing Drakov himself. Natasha is slightly shocked but can't help but feel a little bit relieved as well. They have a small conversation. She admits she has nothing but hate towards the general, yet here she is as her bodyguard. Clint sighs. He sees that there's more to her than that. He can tell she isn't living the life she needs to, not the life she wants to live. But he can't let her walk out of here alive and continue her work. They think for a long time, and eventually it all comes down to a choice she has to make. Clint makes it very clear he doesn't want to kill her, but he will if she can't give him a reason besides his pity. Natasha thinks and thinks, but deep down she has known what to do for a long time. It's all up to her. When Clint claims he can't help her if she doesn't respond, she takes a deep breath and stops him. He says he needs to kill Drakov, but what guarantee does she have that it will be successful? Clint smiles. He is always successful. We don't hear Natasha say it. We just see her thinking and taking a deep breath. Later that day, in the street alongside Dreykov's apartment, we see a mother and daughter exiting their car with several bags full of groceries. While talking and laughing, they enter the building. We don't follow them, however. We see Natasha sitting in a car on the other side of the street who doesn't see them enter. Clint is talking to her via earpiece. She is sure that this is the place? He has set plenty of explosions that will level the whole floor where he lives. Natasha is sure. Milena then attempts to call her, but Natasha disconnects. She feels twisted, but also knows that this is the moment her life will forever change. Her words keep flashing through her mind. How proud Milena is, how incredible and strong Natasha has become. All of that, all of it, will change. Then, Dreykov's car arrives in front of the building. Natasha's heart is racing as she sees him. She sees him enter. Milena again calls, but Natasha again disconnects. Clint asks her if they are good to go. It's all up to her signal. Natasha looks directly at the man she has hated all of her life. She tells Clint to start the countdown. Clint confirms, detonating in 10 seconds. Natasha feels her heart pumping. This is it. 9 seconds. Drakov takes the elevator to his floor. He has a bouquet of flowers for his wife and daughter. 8 seconds. Milena is at the base, still trying to call Natasha. She feels something is wrong. 7 seconds. Natasha clenches her fists. There's no way back now. 6 seconds. She looks at the window and sees a girl there, presumably Dreykov's daughter. Natasha almost jumps, she didn't know they were there. 5 seconds. Drakov arrives at his floor, walking towards the door of his apartment. 4 seconds. Natasha, in her panic, tells Clint to wait. Clint is confused. Wait? Why wait? What is she saying? Natasha wants to repeat herself, but then stops. 3 seconds. She knows this is their only shot. But the girl... But Drakov... 2 seconds. Clint keeps on asking Natasha what she is on about. Does she want him to stop? She needs to say it right now. Natasha's head feels like exploding. 1 second. Drakov knocks at the door of his apartment, and his daughter tells her mother that Daddy is here. Natasha can't look. She closes her eyes and takes a deep breath. Do it. We jump to a bright white screen. There's no explosion, just a bright flash. And in the distance we can hear a man screaming. The screams of a man who has just lost everything. Then the screen turns black. Natasha wakes up chained to the walls in a room. The chains are enforced by an electric device that powers them, so there's no way of breaking free. Several guards stand around her, and Drakov. He smiles at her and is very happy. He's been waiting a long time for this moment. It's like seeing his long-lost daughter again. The daughter Natasha took away from him. He knows what it's like losing all the family he knows. And now he can finally return the favor. Natasha spits in his face, saying she did what she did because it was necessary. He has the blood of thousands of innocent people on his hands. That makes the general rage. He punches Natasha several times across the face and in the stomach. She has no idea what he feels. All he did for the greatness of his motherland, to ensure a better future for the world. And for his loved ones. As the atmosphere turns more and more grim, Natasha eventually claims she has always felt sorry for what happens. After a long and dark stare, the general believes she isn't sorry. Not yet, anyway. By pressing the button on a switch, a large screen appears on the wall in front of them. We see security camera footage of Yelena also tied up in a chamber, being taunted by other guards. When he gives the order, they will kill her, but not quickly. They will do it slowly, very, very slowly. And only then can Natasha tell him again that she's sorry for killing his family. On that note, he leaves, leaving Natasha all alone in the dark room. In Dreykov's office, Milena stands still with a blank face. It's as if her soul has left her body. She pulled the trigger, and with that bullet, her whole life ended. Taskmaster stands next to her in silence. Drakov soon enters the room and congratulates them all. A euphoric moment follows as he believes he's won. And now he can finally further his missions around the globe with his other Widow forces. Not to mention they have brought a nice souvenir from that dead S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Rick Mason. His quinjet has been stored in the hangar below. Its parts will be of good use. He turns to Taskmaster, thanking him for his service. He hands him a briefcase filled with all the money he owes him. The mercenary checks it, and then nods. Before he gets to leave, Drakov halts him, however. He claims there's more money to be earned if he decides to remain in his service for a little while longer. Since his widows are running short on numbers at the moment, he could always use an extra hand in executing foreign missions. Taskmaster is tempted. If it means money, he'll be in touch. Drakov smiles. He knew he could count on him. Then Drakov turns to Milena. He notices her disturbed-looking face and assures her she did the right thing, although it took her long enough. He understands the conflict, though, but she proved herself worthy. Milena doesn't answer. She says nothing, feels nothing. It's then that Drakov claims he has a surprise for her. He presses a button, and upon the large screen behind them, we see a camera view of one of the operating rooms in the base. In the room, we see an unconscious Alexei being held with several doctors and guards. Milena realizes he's alive. But how? Drakov chuckles. The bullet she fired was a tranquilizing bullet. It wasn't lethal. Milena feels like tilting over. Why did he lie to her then? Why tell her he needed to die? Drakov says he needed to ensure her loyalty. And she did. Alexei will have to die, eventually, yes, but first they need to get that serum formula out of his veins. That makes him the strong man he is. The mind-controlling serum, after all, is just one of the many steps he's planning to make. If he can't make an army of mind-controlled widows, then he will make one that can barge through walls and buildings. As they are speaking, his science division in the lower levels is already refining their new serum. All they need now is Alexei's DNA. Just like Drakov says, he never loses, only adapts. Milena is shocked upon hearing this. She can't believe it. He's going to build himself a super soldier army as well, right now? Drakov confirms, yes, and Milena will be a part of that, whether she wants it or not. Shocked and silenced, she tells Drakov she wants to head to her chamber. Not seeing an issue, he allows it. As Milena steps out of the room, she walks to her quarters. As she enters, she collapses against a wall and breaks down in silent tears. She can't believe what she has done. After all this time, she has fully embraced the monster inside of her. Why did she do it? Why? The moment is grim, dark, and, above all, very emotional. Natasha, all alone in her dark room, has only time to think about her memories. She sees Clint, Steve, Tony, Thor, Bruce, Rick, Yelena, Alexei, and yes, even Milena. For a moment she thought her so-called mother would make the right choice. But then she fired the gun, and all is lost. In this moment Natasha has never felt so lost. It's then that several guards enter. Although they carry guns, they put theirs aside and start to crack their knuckles. They claim Drakov has allowed them some time alone with her before he puts an end to her life. Unable to do anything since she is chained up, she suffers a severe beating. The several guards take turns in punching her across the face and her stomach everywhere they seem fit. Natasha, in pain, stays strong, but her mind is completely lost. With every punch the guards give her, we cut to Milena in her chamber. With every punch, we see the mother looking at the same old photograph again of their past life. With every punch, the look on her face changes. When one of the guards delivers his final hit and leaves Natasha with a bloody nose, we see Milena in her room, clenching her fists. The three guards take a breather after having had their fun with Natasha. They joke about how Yelena is probably getting the same treatment as well, as she deserves, of course. Upon hearing that, the older sister tries to break out of her chains, even cursing them, but it only makes the others laugh. It's then that Milena enters the cell, carrying two batons. The soldiers are impressed and almost encourage the woman to let herself go. Natasha, broken, looks her mother in the eyes. But there is no hatred in Milena's eyes to be seen, only a destined look. She holds both batons high, as if she's about to strike the girl down. But in the blink of an eye, she turns around and starts to unleash hell on the three guards in the cell. Before they can grab their guns or anything, Milena knocks one of them down against the wall. The other is kicked in the face while Milena runs towards the last one, jumps in the air, wraps her legs around his throat, and breaks his neck. As one tries to recover on the ground, the woman stands up and slams both batons on his head. Shocked, Natasha stares at her how Milena presses a button on the wall, releasing Natasha from her chains. She falls down as she needs to recover a bit, but Milena helps her back up. She wants to smile at her daughter, but Natasha instead gives her a powerful punch in the face, almost sending Milena down to the ground. As the two women regain their strength, the daughter asks her mother, "Why? Why now?" Milena can't fully answer. It took her far too long to realize. But fear and power have blinded her for so long. Not anymore. They can stand around and argue, Or they can save Yelena and Alexei and take this whole place down with Drakov. Natasha is stunned to hear that Alexei is still alive. Milena nods, but he won't be for long if they don't hurry up. There will be more guards in the control room next to them though, what about those? Milena chuckles. Never mind them. As she opens the cell door, Natasha looks outside and sees a whole control room with nothing but dead guards lying on the floor. Milena casually walks past them and looks at the control panel with all the security cameras of this section. While Natasha grabs some guns, ammunition, grenades and body armor from the dead soldiers, Milena finds Yelena's location. She explains the exact route Natasha needs to take in order to get to Yelena, so that she knows, of course, where she must go. The mother decides their plan. There is a self-destruct button on Dreykov's desk to which only he and herself have access to. If she can press it, this facility will be leveled in minutes. It won't take long before Drakov knows something is wrong, and when that happens, every man and woman will come for them. Milena also reveals to her daughter how Drakov's science division is working on a new serum. Not just a mind-controlling one, but also one that can turn every widow into a super soldier. They are working on it right now. Natasha chuckles. She already knew this. That's the whole reason, partly, that they got Alexei out of prison. But she agrees that they need to stop it, as soon as possible. Even though the chemistry between the two women is still off, they know they have to work together if they wish to survive. In his office, Drakov talks with his fellow assistants about how after the serum is extracted, Alexei will be executed. As for Yelena and Natasha, well, they will meet the same fate as a super soldier. But he intends to let their fate sink in with them a little bit more. The slow knife is always the best one. Taskmaster stands in the corner, looking at the large screen at the wall with numerous security camera footage. It's then that he notices how some of the cameras have been turned off. He tells this to Drakov, who also sees it. He knows those cameras belong to Natasha's cell and the operating room next to it. He orders a soldier to contact the men down there. Taskmaster, not being an idiot, can already feel something is wrong. He turns to his boss and says with a calm and ominous voice, they need to sound the alarm. It's then that the soldier tells Drakov that he can't reach the men down there. Something must have happened. Taking no chances, Drakov orders his men to sound the alarm and send guns down there. Now! He can't have the prisoners escape. How could this even have happened? As chaos very slowly starts to begin, Taskmaster remains calm. He looks the general in the eyes and warns him about Milena. It must have been her. They all saw how she reacted. Drakov can't believe that. Not after all this time. Surely not. Not after all that she has done. No, that can't be right. Instead of arguing any further, the general orders the mercenary to get down there and bring him their heads. He should have killed them long ago. He's not taking any chances. Taskmaster nods his head and leaves. It's then that an alarm starts to go off throughout the entire base. The two women in the operating room know. Drakov must have lost feet to the prison cell. Outside of a door leading to the hallway, they can hear guards trying to get in, yelling. Milena mentions Natasha has only one chance to get to Yelena. Milena, meanwhile, comes up with an alibi. Natasha will have attacked her as well. That way, Milena can easily go to Drakov's office without being a target in his eyes. Natasha thinks for a moment and agrees. Before Milena can say another word, Natasha punches her extremely hard in the face, causing her to fall over. Milena almost curses her since it was so unexpected. What was that for? Natasha claims it's more believable now that she was attacked. Not to mention, she owes her and all the others a whole lot more than that. Even though it makes Milena feel bad again, she understands. They can hear the guards almost getting through the door. Natasha grabs her equipment and readies herself for a fight. She takes all the grenades she can find, puts on a bulletproof vest herself, 2 pistols, and as much ammo for an automatic rifle as she can. She also grabs the 2 batons and attaches them to her belt. Milena lies on the ground and asks her daughter if she's ready to get out there. Once they breach that door, they will all come at her from all sides. Natasha, loading her rifle, smiles and nods her head. She has run away from this place for long enough. Now it's time to face them. Finally. A loud bang is heard, and the door gets breached by armed soldiers. Several guards stand outside, but Natasha comes right at them with her gun, shooting all of them down. She arrives in a long hallway where several guards come rushing at her. There's plenty of cover to be had behind crates and boxes. From this point on, we get one long tracking shot as Natasha shoots at everyone that meets her. She takes cover behind a crate and reloads her gun, throwing a grenade in the process. It goes off, killing several. She immediately jumps from behind her cover and continues her fire. Slow and steady, she walks down the hallway, then another door opens and multiple guards come storming through. She goes through that door, arriving in another hallway. She runs through it as fast as she can. That's when another door opens at the other end. And at the end of that hallway is the room where they keep Yelena. She knows it since Milena told her. Natasha almost runs faster than her legs can carry her. A guard appears through a door, but she jumps in the air and kicks him in the face mid-air. He lands hard on the ground as several soldiers in the last hall open fire as well. Natasha throws another grenade and it goes off. And in this momentum, she runs through with her rifle, opening fire at all of them. One guard appears from the side, almost kicking her down, but she blocks the attack with her gun and smacks him with it in the face. Then her rifle is out, but she smoothly takes out her 2 pistols and shoots the last 3 soldiers in the head. She runs all the way towards the door at the end. And this is where the long tracking shot ends. All the while back in the control room, several guards appear through another door and spot all the dead bodies everywhere. They do find an injured Milena who claims Natasha attacked all of them. Believing her, they help her up and hurry back down the hallway as she orders them to. Once she is in the clear, Milena presses another button at the control panel before running outside herself. Back with Natasha, she reloads her pistols as she is about to breach the door of the cell where they keep Yelena. She needs to rescue her. She uses a keycard from one of the dead guards and manages to open the door, and Natasha comes storming through, only to see how Yelena has already gotten out of her restraints and took out all of the guards herself. She looks at her sister and is surprised, but it doesn't take long before the two embrace. They thought they lost each other for good. Yelena mentions she doesn't know what's going on. Her restraints just unlocked themselves. Natasha thinks for a moment and realizes Milena must have released her, by pushing a button back in the control room probably. To that, Yelena also looks beyond confused. Natasha says she also doesn't understand why Milena has done what she did, but they can't hesitate now. She's helping them and that's all that matters. Alexei is still alive and they need to find him. After hearing that, Yelena readies up as well. She knows where the operating room is, so she can lead them there. The two sisters arm themselves with everything they can find. All the while we hear screaming and shouting coming from several locked doors. It will be a hell of a fight once they go through those doors to the operating room. Natasha and Yelena look at each other and smile. They can handle it. That's when a loud alarm starts to go off. Red lights flicker everywhere through the halls as the alarm keeps on going off. The two sisters stand next to the door that will lead them to Alexei. There are soldiers behind it, but they feel like they can handle it. They both exchange a smile. And it's then that Yelena kicks the door open and Natasha throws a grenade through it. The explosion is loud and takes out several guards. And now we see how the two sisters, side by side, come rampaging through, both shooting their guns side by side. As one reloads, the other holds her back. As the other takes cover, the other one fires on the guards. Through a hallway, up a staircase, through another room, this whole moment shows the two sisters doing what they were born to do. Side by side. It's an epic, empowering moment. When they finally arrive at the door to the operating room where Alexei is being held, the two sisters reload their guns. They smile at each other. Yelena mentions they should do this again sometime. Natasha smiles back. Yeah, that will be sweet. The door is opened and the girls storm through. Several guards are killed, but the doctors plead for their lives while Alexei is still semi-conscious on a large operating table. As Natasha sees how there are several dead corpses being used as test subjects for other serums, she completely loses it for a moment. And in a very swift move, she guns down all the doctors in the room. Not a single guilty person will leave this place. The two head to their father and help him back up. They embrace each other as the three of them can't be any happier to see each other still alive. Upstairs in his office, Drakov is ordering all his troops via the intercom. He can see the two girls in the operating room freeing Alexei, making him fuming red with anger. It's then that the door opens behind him and Milena walks through. Drakov looks at her and sees her bruised face and believes as she tells him that she was attacked. In all the chaos, Drakov shouts at several soldiers and other people in the room, all of them trying to figure out what to do in the moment. While all of this happens, Milena slowly walks towards the large desk, and she sees the red destruction button beneath the glass. Slowly but surely, she walks over there, until she's right at it. When Drakov turns around, he sees Milena standing there. They look at each other, and it's then that the general sees that he was a fool, and Taskmaster was right. He sighs, and asks her why. Why does she betray him? She shakes her head. Milena has been afraid of him in this place for a long time, twisted with the idea of power and control, but failing to see what they were really doing. Doing to so many innocent girls. But then her old family got back together and everything came back. Why couldn't he just let them be? Why risk so much to have his revenge after so many years? Drakov doesn't understand. He never forgets anything. He may wait, he may shift his focus or anything, but he will always have his revenge, whatever it takes. Milena doesn't understand as well. He goes out of his way for those two girls, but what about all those other girls? What about all those widows who have died for him? Did he take revenge on their killers? Did he take revenge then? The general snorts. Those widows died in the field for what they were trained to do, for what she trained them to do. Milena claims those girls look at him like a father, yet he looks at them like animals, like beasts. She may have trained them, but she has felt for every single one of them, always. Drakov doesn't believe what he's hearing. Is she, now at this moment, growing a conscience? She helped build all of this with him back in the day. Whether she wants it or not, she is as responsible as he is. Drakov promises her that they will not survive. Not Natasha, not Yelena, not Alexei. There are too many people here, including Taskmaster. Milena has a moment right now. She thinks back to the times when she was still a mother for little Natasha and Yelena. She was never truly there for them. Never truly a parent. Alexei was that. He had always been. But that doesn't mean she can't do something for them now. Her heart has made its decision. She slowly looks down at Drakov's desk and at the emergency self-destruct button behind the glass. Drakov realizes what she's about to do. His eyes sense what she's planning. He yells at her, ordering the guards to halt her. Stop, no! But Milena presses her thumb to the DNA scanner next to the button. The glass opens, and she presses it. An immense siren starts to go off through the entire base. In the operating room, the three look at each other. Natasha knows. Milena has just pressed the destruct button. Alexei doesn't understand. Milena? Why would she help them? Natasha doesn't know either, but she told her to head down to the science lab. They are apparently making a new serum that will turn the widows into super soldiers. The only way they take down this whole place is if they also destroy everything they find down there. Alexei doesn't understand. If the base is already on self-destruct, why do they need to go down to the lab? Yelena, knowing the entire facility, tells them that the science department is underground. It's basically a hidden bunker, completely sealed off. The only way to destroy that is from the inside. Alexei asks how they are planning on doing that. Yelena smiles. Well, with a whole bunch of explosives, of course. That makes Alexei chuckle. That's his girl. First now they need to head down to the armory where they can get his shield. Back in his office, Drakov curses Milena for everyone to hear, but she simply shows a smile. The first genuine smile in years. She's done feeding the monster inside her, and she will finally do what she should have done a long time ago. That's when she's knocked to the ground by a guard behind her. Drakov tries to stop the self-destruct, but there's nothing he can do. Soon, this whole place will be leveled. He calls his guards to protect him as they make their way to the helipad. Have a helicopter ready for him. His final order is to everyone in the base. His soldiers, his widows, and Taskmaster. He orders every single soul to eradicate the 3 prisoners. Don't let them leave this place alive. Then, via the intercom, he speaks directly to Natasha, Yelena and Alexei, simply telling them that he will see them in hell. At that moment, we see how Natasha, Yelena and Alexei have already broken into the armory. The Red Guardian is wearing his full uniform and shield. Both Natasha and Yelena carry several explosives with them powerful enough to level the laboratory underground. They hear Drakov talking to them through the speakers. Alexei curses him. Let's move. In the hallways and hangars of the whole facility, we see hundreds of people running around. It appears the entire base is on high alert. Sirens keep going off, and red lights flicker everywhere. All the widows are also arming themselves. No one is leaving this place, even though destruction is imminent. Natasha, Yelena and Alexei run through the hallway. They run past many rooms and halls, encountering a soldier here and there. Once, Natasha takes one down by jumping at him with her batons. Another one is taken down as Alexei slams his shield in his face. And finally, they arrive at the hallway where the elevator to the science division is all the way at the end. And between them and that stand several dozens of guards, including widows. They all notice each other and freeze on the spot. The sirens keep going off. It's silent. Alexei holds his shield ready, Natasha has her 2 batons in her hands, and Yelena loads her 2 guns. And all the other guards lock and load their guns as well. A massive roar is heard by all of them as they charge towards each other. A hectic fight ensues through the hallway as a trio fights their way towards the elevator. Even though both Yelena and Natasha suffer wounds, Alexei is mostly unhurt. They manage to eventually reach the elevator and open it with another keycard from one of the guards. As it opens, we suddenly see someone arrive at the end of the hallway. It's Taskmaster. The 3 look at him with horror in their eyes. Not him, no, anyone but him. Alexei yells at them to get in the elevator. The 3 head inside and start to push the button for it to close. All the while Taskmaster starts to run at them like a monster. As the thing closes, Taskmaster throws his shield at it, causing the elevator to not fully close. He readies his bow and arrow, but then Alexei kicks the shield away, causing the elevator to finally fully close. The last they hear from the mercenary is a loud bang at the steel from the outside, indicating how he wanted to punch his way through, but unsuccessfully. The 3 recover inside the elevator as they head down into the ground. In her mind, Milena travels to a final memory from her past life. She's looking at little Natasha as she's drawing a picture. The little girl smiles at her, but Milena can't return it. It's only after seconds, realizing the picture and her daughter's smile, that she sees what she truly has. And in the end, we see Milena actually letting out a smile. A genuine, heartfelt smile. And on that note, Milena wakes up in the office. She sees Drakov walking away with some soldiers in the distance, and another one standing in front of her. As the soldier readies his gun, she kicks him in the leg. Before he can do anything, she grabs his gun and shoots him down. Drakov hears the shot and turns around, and sees Milena standing there with guns and all. A shiver goes down his spine, while Milena yells at him, "Drakov! Prepare to meet your father!" Roaring, he orders all the remaining guards to stop her, kill her! At that moment, in the elevator, the 3 stop and the doors open, revealing a large room filled with scientific equipment for research and crafting. Dozens of scientists are there, including several widows as well. As the doors open, the 3 look at everyone present with determination in their eyes. They storm out of the elevator and into the science lab, and a very hectic fight ensues. Red Guardian fights against the guards. Yelena and Natasha face down with their fellow widows, and all the while this fight intertwines with the one while Milena rampages after Drakov and his men through the hallway upstairs. She opens fire. Drakov runs through the hallway while being guarded, towards the helipad outside. Milena shoots several guards down and then throws a knife at another one. She reloads behind the corner of the office, and that's when she looks back at the big screen behind Drakov's desk, where she sees how Natasha, Yelena and Alexei are also fighting in the science lab. Milena looks at the sights with a smile and a tear. It gives her courage, and with a loud battle cry, she storms at the guards in the hallway, Feeling like an unstoppable force, Milena rampages through the hall towards Drakov. She guns several soldiers down, tackles another one, pins a fourth down to the ground and breaks his neck. She takes the dead man's pistol and then shoots at several others as well. Milena is completely unstoppable. In the lab, the trio keeps on fighting as well, destroying everything they can. Eventually, again despite some injuries, they manage to take everyone out. While Natasha and Yelena prepare to set the explosives around the place, they suddenly hear noises coming from the elevator. As they look, we suddenly see Taskmaster clawing his way through the steel of the elevator. He apparently jumped down the shafts and followed them down there. Now he stands there with his claws and shield in hands. Alexei is done and tells the girls to hurry up. He will deal with him once and for all. The two men stare at each other, feeling like they need to set something straight after their last encounter, and thus a brutal and intense fight erupts between the two. Yelena and Natasha want to help their father out, but Alexei, while knocking down the Taskmaster, yells at them to plant the explosives. He'll take care of this. Eventually, the girls too manage to arm the whole lab with explosives. As Red Guardian continues to fight Taskmaster, eventually, the Mercenary manages to grasp Alexei's shield with his claws and throws it away, leaving Alexei disarmed. And in the blink of an eye, Taskmaster evades a punch from his opponents and brutally slashes his claws against the Russian's face, knocking him down. Alexei tries to get up, but with several lethal combos, Taskmaster beats his face badly. A scream is heard, and suddenly the Mercenary gets hit with Alexei's shield, thrown by Natasha. The Mercenary stumbles back as he recovers from the hits. Quickly, Yelena helps Alexei back up, but he's badly hurt. A stare down happens when Taskmaster looks at the three. Yelena helping her father back up, and Natasha standing in front of them with her batons. Alexei, grunting and groaning out his pain, tells him that he can't beat him. He survives everything. Natasha responds by saying that he can try to survive this. She holds the detonator in her hands of all the explosives in the lab and presses it. A countdown begins as dozens of explosives in the lab start ticking. Natasha yells at the other two to get in the elevator. Taskmaster starts to run towards them in order to escape as well, but Black Widow grabs her pistol and starts firing at him. The Mercenary is forced to take cover while he also dodges several of the bullets. Meanwhile, the trio gets inside the elevator. A very intense moment occurs when Natasha starts slamming the button to close it, while Taskmaster comes storming at them, but just in time the elevator closes again, leaving Taskmaster down in the lab. As the intensity continues, the trio are cursing for the elevator to go faster, come on! And then a loud explosion is heard. But the elevator remains stable, and soon they arrive at the top hallway again. The sirens continue to go off as the trio try to find a way to the outside. At the end of the hallway, Alexei almost collapses due to blood loss and injuries. The two daughters try to pick him up as they know they have to move. This whole place is about to be demolished. It's then that they hear noise coming from behind them. All the way back from the elevator shafts. No, it can't be. The three look back in horror and see how two sets of claws burst through the elevator door and Taskmaster comes crawling out like a monster. His uniform looks ragged, but he's perfectly capable still. Alexei sighs. Yelena stares in disbelief. There's no killing that thing. Natasha in this moment tells her sister and father to continue to the outside. Once they reach the hangar, they can get in Rick's quinjet and fly out of here. Yelena, realizing what Natasha means, doesn't want to. She doesn't want to leave her sister alone. A short emotional moment happens, but Natasha urges them to keep moving. And in tears, Yelena takes her wounded father with her. And then it's only Natasha and Taskmaster. Another explosion is heard that makes the ground shake, but the two don't move a muscle. It's clear to them that the base is starting to fall apart. Natasha realizes her guns are out of ammo, and thus grabs her batons. In reaction, Taskmaster puts away his claws and takes out his sword to even out the match. The two have a stand down, and after a second explosion, Taskmaster yells at her that she should have surrendered to Drakov when she had the chance. No one with that much red in their ledger is able to live a normal life, let alone live at all. Natasha knows, but she's done. She's done feeding her demons, and she's done living with regret. Now all that matters is her family. Her real family. On that note, the two storm at each other, and the vicious fight begins between the two. Taskmaster slamming down with his sword while Natasha tries to block every attack with her own weapons. It's very clear how Taskmaster has studied all of her moves perfectly, since he's able to imitate everything she does. It's almost like she is fighting her own reflection. Yelena and Alexei move as fast as they can through the base, all the while multiple guards appear. Every now and then Yelena puts her father down and shoots the enemies from a distance. She even hands him a pistol as well so that he can cover her while she moves him around. Finally, they arrive at the hangar where a massive part of the roof collapses, killing many. Yelena and Alexei rush to take cover, while the whole place fills with smoke and dust. Natasha and Taskmaster continue their fight through the hallways, constantly beating and hammering at each other with their sword and batons. Sometimes Natasha is able to land a decent hit at the man, but mostly Taskmaster completely has the upper hand, driving her back and back and back. Once Natasha almost gets pinned to the wall, but she just narrowly manages to escape. She has never come this close to dying over and over again. It's when a very loud explosion goes off that the two stop fighting. They look above them and see how the ceiling is starting to collapse. Without hesitating, they start running through the hallways in order to reach the hangar. The faster they move, the more of the ceiling starts to collapse behind them. And when they finally reach the hallway leading to the hangar, they run as fast as they can. At the other end, we see Alexei and Yelena yelling at Natasha to run faster, faster, come on! Until suddenly the ceiling collapses in front of her. And all we see is dust erupting in the air. The dust takes over the screen. And we fade into Drakov running through the upper levels of the base. The last men remaining by his side are all sent back to deal with Milena, who's still charging at them with gunfire. As the men keep on hurrying through the halls, another explosion goes off, causing all of them to fall over. Milena falls down as well, but regains her footing quickly. She opens fire again at some disoriented soldiers. After that, she keeps on running as fast as possible. Two final guards oppose her. She wants to shoot but realizes she's out of ammo. She drops the rifle and takes out a knife. With all her remaining strength, she attacks the soldiers head on. She slashes one in the throat while the other manages to tackle her to the ground. As they struggle with each other, she eventually manages to lock his head between her legs and snaps it. Suddenly, a third soldier appears out of nowhere and shoots Milena. We fade to black. As we fade back in, we see Natasha pinned down with her leg underneath some debris. She's unharmed, trying to get free. She realizes she's trapped. All the while the dust and smoke keep on erupting around her. It's a hopeless moment. They are never getting out of here. They are lost. But just when she loses hope, the debris that was crushing her leg gets lifted up. A massive force of some sort appears to be helping her. And we soon see it's Alexei. Even though he's wounded, he somehow found the strength to save that what is most dear to him. Natasha sees how her father completely lifts up the debris himself, smiling at her. Get out! They aren't staying here! Let's go! Yelena helps her sister up, and the three make their way to the quinjet at the other end of the hangar, which isn't destroyed yet. As the trio moves towards it, we hear something else coming out of the debris behind them. Even more in horror, they see a partially wounded Taskmaster crawling out of the rubble. They all look at each other, but it's now that the Mercenary looks around. He sees the destroyed base, all the dead people, and the explosions keep on going off. For all he knows, Drakov may even be dead already. It's now that he looks at the three of them and simply puts away his swords. There's no worth in this for him. No profit at all, nothing to gain. And just like that, the Mercenary disappears into the smoke. The trio quickly hurry themselves to the quinjet as more explosives happen around them. At the upper level, Drakov, the last man standing, arrives at the helipad as a second explosion occurs. His evacuating helicopter arrives on the scene as the general is waving at it, but the chopper suddenly gets gunned down from the sides. Drakov is shocked as he sees his way out of here crashing before his eyes down to the ground. A quinjet arrives on the scene and passes over the helipad. Drakov looks at it and is shocked to see it's Yelena Belova flying it. In full distress, the general starts to look around for a way to escape. Breathing heavily, he runs to a set of stairs that leads down below, but before he can start his descent, he's shot in the back. He screams and collapses on his knees. As he falls down, we see a wounded Milena walking towards him from behind, a pistol in her hand. She has a gunshot wound in her lower thigh, but she can still walk. Everything slows down now. Drakov sits there as his entire base, his entire life, collapses around him. Milena stands in front of him, aiming the gun. He calls her a traitor, but that doesn't stop her from killing him. And with a final gunshot, she shoots him directly in the chest, causing the man to fall over, dead. Milena lets out a long sigh. It's done. As the facility keeps on collapsing around her, she starts to head for the stairs as well. She has to hurry to reach a safe zone. As she arrives at the stairs, she suddenly realizes something else. She realizes something terrifying. Realizing Drakov would never go out so easily like that. And just when she thinks that, it's too late. As she gets shot in the back as well, and 2 times in her legs. In shock and pain, screaming, she collapses. Drakov is standing right behind her, pointing out he always wears Kevlar, and she disappoints him to have forgotten that. Milena in agony tries to crawl to the stairs, but Drakov stands on her leg and aims the gun at her head. How disappointed he is in her. There was a time when he loved her and her widows and everything that she did for the organization. But now he truly sees. He was wrong to have ever even trusted anyone at all. As he wants to shoot, he realizes the clip is empty, and that gives Milena a final adrenaline rush. She kicks the man down and crawls on top of him. They both have a very intense struggle. Blood is everywhere from Milena's wounds, but she manages to pin him down. He takes out a knife, but she blocks it and slowly turns it around. The two of them struggle immensely hard. Drakov, yelling and screaming, tries everything he can to block the knife from nearing him, but he fails. Milena curses him softly as she slowly lets the blade pierce through his throat, and then gives it a final push. Drakov dies right there as blood fills the floor. As the base is collapsing, Milena tries to get up but can't. Her wounds hurt too much. As she falls down as well, she sees the quinjet flying in the distance, and she knows Natasha, Yelena and Alexei are probably inside it. Not noticing her, the trio fly past the base and towards the mountains. Seeing it, Milena starts to cry, but not out of sadness. Now she cries out of happiness. She will finally pay for all the terrible mistakes she has made, and it will be on her own terms, like it should be. She lies there on the helipad with a smile on her face, watching her family fly away in the distance, and she feels fulfilled. Her memories go back to her days as a mother, and she chooses to relive that one time she smiled at little Natasha. That's the way she wants to remember it. That's the way she wants to leave this place. And that is when the final explosion happens, and the entire base erupts in flame and collapses, taking everything with it. Natasha, Yelena and Alexei look at it from inside the quinjet, not knowing what truly happened. All they know is that the past has finally died, and all 3 of them are free. On a hilltop next to the destroyed base, we see Taskmaster looking at all the destruction. His work is done here, and he knows the world will probably be a better place with Drakov and all his widows dead. We see the Mercenary disappear into the wild in silence, knowing he will probably make a return in the future. Natasha lands the quinjet outside the old safe house back in Norway. Everyone is quiet. They know what just happened. Drakov is dead. Milena is presumed dead. Everything is done. Natasha, Yelena and Alexei sit next to each other on the porch. It's silent. But finally Yelena does hold Alexei's hand. He smiles. He then grabs Natasha's hand as well. The three sit there like a family. A small one and broken, but a family nonetheless. They watch the sunset in the distance, and they feel like everything will eventually be okay. Natasha sits in her room as she looks at an old pager she had hidden away. Yelena comes in and asks about it, to which Natasha reveals Steve Rogers had given it to her if he would ever need her. And apparently the night before, she received a message from him. Steve and Sam Wilson need her back, even though they are all wanted fugitives back in America. Yelena smiles and reminds her older sister that she always did say she had another family across the Atlantic Ocean. Natasha knows, and she will never let them down. But helping them would also mean leaving the family she has right here. The two sisters have a sweet moment together. Yelena trusts her in making the right decision. That evening, Alexei makes dinner for the three of them. Music is playing, they drink, eat and laugh and have a genuinely fun family time. It's as if they are back at their old home in Ohio again. They play drinking games, sing along to some music, and all enjoy their time together. After the dishes have been done, Natasha turns quiet and looks at her father and sister. She has the pager in her hands, but Alexei already knows what she wants to say. She has built a new life somewhere else, and she needs to stay true to that as well. They all knew this would be their last night together, at least for a while. Natasha smiles, trying to hold back some tears. She couldn't have wished for better people in her life. Alexei cheers her up. Let's enjoy this final night together like they want. And that's exactly what they do. The three head towards a hill in the field, lay out a blanket and sit together with some vodka, watching the beautiful night sky. The moment is very wholesome and sweet. The next morning, Natasha readies the quinjet. She sprays some new paint on it since the name Daisy was slowly fading away. Painting new letters is a way of honoring Rick in her mind. Without him, they would have never gotten where they are now. As everything is ready, she sees Yelena and Alexei standing on the porch. They don't immediately say something, but it's clear enough what it means. Natasha and Yelena embrace each other warmly, thanking each other. They will never forget each other, never. Alexei can't help but embrace the two at the same time, almost jokingly crushing them. They laugh a bit. Alexei tells Natasha to be careful. He will take care of Yelena, he promises. And whatever happens, they will see each other again, soon. Natasha nods. She promises she will look out for them once everything is over. But she can't leave her friends. She needs to help them as well. And they all understand. It's a very emotional and heartfelt farewell. The sisters embrace, but not before Yelena takes off her own brown vest and gives it to Natasha. She said it will be something to remember her by. Alexei claims he wants to give her his pants as well, but he fears they might be too big. That again makes them laugh. They give a final embrace, and then they part ways. Before getting to the quinjet, Natasha looks back and thanks them. Yelena and Alexei find that strange. Why does she need to thank them? Natasha chuckles, just thanking them for showing not all her past life was a lie after all. She shares a final look, smiling, and after that she closes the hatch and takes off in the air. Both Alexei and Yelena watch how she flies away with the quinjet over the hills and towards the horizon, towards her future, towards her fate. We see Taskmaster entering what appears to be a secret hideout bunker of some sorts. He takes off his mask, but his face remains in the dark. He places it down on a desk as he takes a deep breath, recovering from his mission. It's then the light suddenly turns on behind him, and in the blink of an eye he has his bow and arrow ready in his hands and aims it behind him, only to see Thaddeus Ross sitting in a chair. The man smiles at him and says it took a while to find this place. Taskmaster asks what he wants. Ross has a mysterious look on his face. Well, he has a proposition for him. Somewhere in a bar, along a road, in the middle of an ice-cold snowy landscape, we see a man sitting in the back of a crowded place. It's revealed to be Ursa Major, having escaped a prison complex. As he drinks a beer, another person seats himself in front of him, revealing to be Mentak. They talk a bit about how they managed to escape. Mentak asks if he has heard anything of Red Guardian, but Ursa hasn't. That man appears to have completely disappeared. It's annoying, but right now at least they have a chance to get their old plan back on track. Mentak smiles and takes out a list. He says he's been hearing of new volunteers to join them, apparently. Ursa also smiles and takes a look at the list his friend made for him. A list of his new team. His new Winter Guard.